to respect folks' time, we're just going to go ahead and call this retreat to order. Woo! So good to see everybody. And thank you to Luann for joining us tonight. She's going to help lead the work as we tackle the board norms a little bit later. But before we get into that, just a really quick check-in, and thank you to Jane for the suggestion on sharing your why. And again, it's going to be really quick. I'm going to start it off. My why is, oh, sorry, what?
I was going to start it off, if that's okay.
Okay, go
You want
ahead.
it, you want it, but you want it,
Go
you need
ahead.
to talk.
I don't need it, no, go
No.
ahead.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to explain the check-in circle process, because actually it was Maka who I was going to get on FaceTime, I guess. Is she on FaceTime?
I think she's calling her right now.
Is she calling you?
No, I was just saying I think you're calling her right now.
Okay. Here, if you're gonna, I just want
No,
to.
no, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so, I don't know how to use. Okay, there you are. All right, she's on. Okay, so it was actually Maka's idea to do a check-in circle just so that we could all experience what a check-in circle was. And so I asked Kristen for the golden apple, because this is the symbol of excellence. And so, as we are the leaders of this district and in modeling the excellence, and now modeling the check-in circle process. So when we talk about the restorative process, we talk about the restorative pyramid, and the bottom is the most important part is the building of relationships, and that's the core. And then the middle part of the circle is resolving conflict, and then the tippy top is repairing harm. So when people talk about the restorative processes, we often go straight to thinking about the repairing harm part, but really the bulk of the work is in the building of the relationships. So I talked to President Malone about just doing a check-in circle, and the question that I shared with her is, this is the question. Okay. Thinking about your role in this district, what values do you hope to embody when you are at your best, and tell us why? And so for me, I guess what I like to bring to the board table is curiosity. And the reason why I think curiosity is important is, well, number one, when you're curious, it's really hard to embody the other distracting emotions. And in curiosity, I think, is really one of the primary roles that we have as board members, to kind of get to the bottom of things, and to learn and to do our best. So I'm going to pass it, and it's okay to pass. You don't have to engage. It's always okay to pass. Okay. You can always only talk when you have the talking piece.
Okay. Thanks, Jenny.
You bet.
And so we're sharing the value we want to embody.
Yeah. Thinking about your role in this district, what value do you hope to embody when you are at your best?
I think that I suppose the value I want to embody when I'm at my best is empathy. Just to try to get to the place where other people are, to kind of understand where they're coming from. Especially maybe when there's not agreement there. I'm trying to understand how we can meet each other where we're at.
The value, I would say, is inclusivity. I think about my years at West High School, and that was always really an important part of what I felt like I was doing there, and it seems like a good way to be able to continue that.
I'm trying to think of being at my best. But I would say altruism is the value that I try to embody. Because one thing I love about the district is that we have, over the past several years, really, embodied being one district, all in it for all kids. And I love that part of it, and I love, that about our district. And so I really try to be selfless as much as I can.
not to duplicate already, but I'm actually going to say 2 words if that's not breaking a rule. But I love the word empathy, and I would pair with that creativity. I think I need both of those pieces to do my job well and to do it at its best, and to understand the perspective of all of the different stakeholders we're trying to reach at any given time. So
I would say support, and the ability to support all of you to do what you do to provide educational opportunities to students.
Like Brady, you know, you think about being at your best. Like a couple moments today where I didn't feel like I was at my best, so just put that out there. But I always think about, you know, like excellence, and I think there's a lot within excellence, but, you know, really what we want to provide is an excellent environment for our kids. And the way we do that is to bring the best version of ourselves every day and to try to inspire other people to be excellent. And so the more excellence we can model and do at the top, the better our kids are going to have for an experience, or the better experience that they're going to have because of that. And so trying to hold ourselves that standard at 10 out of 10, you know, they deserve our best every single day. We don't get a day off and that type of thing. And then when we do, you know, even some of the stuff Director Finch was talking about repairing it, you know, is important to do when we get away from that. And so I think I'll stay focused on that excellence piece.
So I think I would go with enthusiasm, but it goes with what Matt said and also what JP said, especially in the work we do. It's easy to get bogged down in the monotony or the difficult conversations that we have, but being an educator is the best job in the world, and education should be a really positive experience. And so when I'm at my best, I'm able to channel or exude enthusiasm, because you never know what experiences the person you're going to meet with that day are bringing to it. And if you bring a positive persona, you're going to make their day better, even for a difficult conversation. So I think that positive or that professional enthusiasm is something that people see visibly when I'm at my best.
Thank you. I would say improving our district for all of our students to be successful, as well as continuously learning, not only as a student, but a community member and the board leader. Because if I'm not continuing learning from those around me, especially the educators at the table, I don't think I am allowing myself to do the job of improving the situation for our students.
So in this role, I would say vision. I think our job as the board of directors is to have a vision of where we want to go, and it's our job to get us there and to be continually thinking about what we can do, not necessarily on the details level, but on the big policy level to make the district better.
Without trying to steal ideas, so I'm thinking about when I'm at my best, I'm in that role of being a servant leader, and it's not always easy to stay in that role when you're trying to get things done, but just to really think about it from a high level, that staying in a space of servant leadership with a focus on just great outcomes for kids, equitable outcomes.
When my kids were small, 5-year-old, starting kindergarten, especially my young oldest son, he would often say, playing with his playmates, playing with me, this is not a winning game. And I took that to mean, from his standpoint, that he wanted to play, wanted to be engaged, he wanted to have relationships, but he didn't want it to be a competition. And I struggle with that from time to time, but it's something that I remember in my best moments, I think.
Thank you. Great, thank you. That takes us to the meat of our agenda item, board norms. Oh, sorry, Martha, yeah.
I can see
I'd
her.
like to share.
Hi. Yeah, I did, thank you. So also, by the way, the only person I can't hear is Charlie. So Charlie, I know you speak quietly, if you can speak up a little bit. So I'd say what I bring to it is a passion for public education. That I've been working in it for about 20 years or more, I guess. But that's what I
Thank you. We're going to dive into the meat of it, board norms, and we have a facilitator with us, Lou Ann from Iowa Association of School Boards. She's going to help us do a deep dive and tackle some of these, and she's helped some boards previously, but Lou Ann, feel free to, yes, come join the table and offer any other information you would like to about yourself.
Thank you. After that beautiful opening, I'm like, I'm done. You all are so good. I don't even need to be here. That was beautiful, and how lucky, fortunate that your community, hi Monica, I'm Lou, is represented by you all. Because if every board brings that much passion and empathy and all the beautiful things you said, your students are very fortunate. So I'm Lou Ann Gavist. I go by Lou. My friends call me Lou, so I appreciate it if you do that as well. Only my mom calls me Lou Ann. But it's an honor to be here, and as part of your association, the School Board Association, one of the things that we do, in addition to providing lots of resources on our website, like tools for school finance or all kinds of things with HR or advocacy in our events, this is the work that we're most proud to do because we think it makes the most significant difference. So thank you for having me today. My contact information is on the website. I'll give you my cell phone number later if you want to give me a call. We answer any question if you have any questions. If I can't help you, somebody else will. When we look at the research on highly effective board teams, one of those traits of highly effective board teams is learning together at the board table. So I just wanted to, again, thank you for being here and your commitment to yourselves and your board norms, but your learning in a whole together is commendable. So please don't underestimate that. Did you want to make any opening statements, anybody, or would you just like me to jump in?
Maybe I'll just provide a little bit of history. I mean, we did talk at, I think our last retreat was where this originally came up about some norms, and then I think it maybe went to a P&G. I could have the order of that wrong, but I know our last touch point was at a P&G meeting, and then we decided that time and space probably wasn't the best to have this conversation, so then we'd identified having a longer conversation in a retreat. And so, and then, you know, just my experience on the norming conversation has always been it's helpful if you have somebody from outside the group help facilitate that with you because if somebody from the group tries to facilitate that and establish those norms, that gets a little tricky because we all have different opinions and voice in that conversation. So we had reached out to the School Board Association, and we're lucky enough to be connected with Lou. And you know, I think the thing I've been the most proud of that I tell the community and even our staff all the time is what I've seen out of our board as the superintendent in comparison to my time previous here as an assistant superintendent, and how functional we've been and how I think that benefits the kids in our district. Because that, if I'm being honest, that hasn't always been the case here, you know, and I think we all know that from being involved with our community for the last 10 years. But you guys have a lot to be proud of that way and how you've changed the culture and been a part of that positive turn and how that's impacted our students. And so I think, like Lou said, I mean, this is just going to contribute further to that work to keep it going in that direction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Would you mind all introducing yourselves? You all know one another, and I think I know most of you, but I don't know all of you. And then I'd like to talk about how everybody's going to contribute or observe. So, Chase, would you like to start?
I'm sorry, I was checking on something.
Just introduce yourself.
We never get a dull moment. Chase Ramey, Deputy Superintendent.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ruthina Malone, Board President.
Board President.
Lisa Williams, Board Vice President.
Thank you.
Amy Kortmeyer, Deputy Superintendent.
Okay. I think I've
Charlie Eastham, board member.
Hey, Charlie.
Jane Finch, board member.
Hey, Monica. Oh, you're muted. She's muted. Sorry.
Oh, got it.
I'll just take it to everything I'm supposed to be doing. Sorry, everyone. My name's Maka Pilcher. I am board member.
Hi, Monica. And if at any point in time you need to have us speak up or you need to be moved, just let us know what we can do to help you feel more included, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
JP Clausen, board member.
Molly Abraham, board member.
I followed you in, Molly, thanks for
Yes.
being away.
Yes, I saw you and I thought,
She looks, yeah, full county plate.
I'm not sure.
Brady Shedd, president of the Teachers Association.
Oh, okay. Do all of you usually attend workshops or board meetings? Is this a typical?
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm just getting the lay of the land. That's
Yeah.
great. For the board norms, hello, would you
Hi.
like to introduce yourself? Talking about being inclusive.
Well, thank you. No, you're just fine. Kristen Peterson, I'm the Director of Community Relations.
Oh, okay, that's why you have the ISPRA,
Oh, yeah.
Tangible top bar.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
You're
And
fine.
Kim is back here. Kim's the one that keeps us all organized and together, so.
And,
Kim-
yeah.
Yeah.
Great. As far as the work this afternoon, how do you perceive this going? Since these are board norms, are the staff watching primarily, or are they engaging in the discussion? That's up to the pleasure of the board.
I mean, my general thought is they are the board norms, and so we'd be happy to be here and, witness that, but I don't really think that's probably our place to tell you guys what your norms should be or that. I mean, as you have questions or things like that, certainly, we can offer our thoughts or, contributions that way, but, I mean, again, I think these are your guys's, right? So,
Are you all okay
but
with
if
that?
you disagree
It's
with
a
that,
board
we'd be happy to
discussion.
do whatever, so, yeah.
And then if you have questions.
I would say I think we're fairly collaborative, so if somebody around the team has a thought, like I don't want you
That we
guys
can't
not to
say
share
anything.
it.
Sure.
You
Right.
say that. So
Okay.
with that caveat.
Great, that makes sense, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I'm glad that you're all here, because this is an important conversation. As I shared earlier with Kim when I first came in, setting board norms is a really healthy thing that boards do, and as Matt said, we've helped boards all across the state do it. And it's a really proactive way to talk about how y'all want. I have kids that live in Texas, so I can legally say how y'all want to live and work together. And I'll try to speak up, Maka. I was a 4th grade teacher, but I don't have an outside playground voice, so I'll try to do my best. But really it can be proactive, and it really sends a real powerful and positive message to your community. That you're, as you said, who said that they want to continually grow and learn? I think it was you, Ruthina. That's a beautiful way to say that. So thank you for that. You talked about, thank you, Kim, you won't have to stand up through the whole night. I'll just have a few slides. Thank you, okay. And Maka, I think you have the PowerPoint. I'm just gonna go through a few slides just to set the conversation. Thank you. So you talked about what is your why or what is your value, and I already honored that. I thought it was a beautiful way to start your conversation tonight. You can go to the next slide, thank you. And what's really interesting about that is we really believe in locally elected board members as a backbone in our society to serve public education. And some of the information I'm pulling from comes from the governance core. This is school boards, superintendents, and schools working together. The educators in the room will recognize Michael Fullen. He's an expert in school improvement. We had him speak a couple of years ago at our convention. He wrote a book with Davis Campbell, because what Michael Fullen realized that when you're talking about what works in school improvement and student learning is oftentimes the group that's left out of that conversation is the board. And yet you have such a powerful and important governance role. And so they wrote a whole book on it. So I'm not going to bore you with the whole book, but I'm going to pull a couple quotes. And when you talk about unification, what they perceived and how they preface the book on, and I'll just read the quote and we can talk, I'll just mention a couple things. The unified board is made up of individuals complete with different beliefs, styles, and personalities, working together with a shared moral imperative in a collaborative, cooperative fashion toward a common goal. And I think what that does, it really values that you are all individuals. You do bring your different perspectives to the table, which we believe is the power of a locally elected board. We really do honor that. What's fascinating about that, though, then you have a bunch of wonderful personalities with different perspectives and beliefs that come together around what Fullen and Campbell call a shared moral imperative. You've identified your moral imperative on your website and your strategic goals as you want to raise student learning and close achievement gaps. That's exactly how Fullen and Campbell talked about the moral imperative, raising the bar and closing the gaps. That's what you all come around with, right? That's what you all believe in, and that's where you find your common ground to work cohesively and collaboratively. So when everything else, when you might be not agreeing on everything, in the end, that's where you find your common ground, is what's best for students. Thank you, Kim. Lisa Bartusik is our executive director who's retiring, and she just shared her thoughts at one of our conferences, and she talks about this a lot. The culture of the boardroom impacts the culture of the classroom. All to say, what you do makes a significant difference. The policy level decisions that you make, the decisions that you make on behalf of students in your community, and the tone that you set for the district really makes a difference. And so thank you for your leadership. I pulled some, thank you to, are you the person that does the Facebook moderator?
Yes.
Thank you. Woohoo. So thank you to, what's your first name?
Kristen.
Kristen. I pulled some photos off of your Facebook page because I think it's sometimes helpful to see who you're serving. You can just go ahead, Kim. These are beautiful pictures of your students collaborating. I specifically looked at pictures where we have collaboration because that's what you're focusing on tonight. I think it's helpful just to remember, and I love this picture, and I selected that one intentionally because, again, you make a difference. In the governance core, there's a whole section on setting board norms. In fact, they even have a template for doing so. And one of the board members they quoted in the book that talks about the question that they asked at the board table is, how is our board behavior a model for how the children in our district should behave now and in the future? And again, it's just a beautiful way to think about how your governance makes a difference. I think you're going to be talking about marketing later, is that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This all ties hand in hand with that because now we know parents have more choice than ever, whether we like that or not, they do. And so do teachers. And so why come to Iowa City? Why come here? That's going to be an important discussion that you're going to have, and you all contribute to that. Thanks, Kim. So this is the last question. This is in the last slide, but it's a question that I'm going to pose for you tonight or this afternoon. What will it take for us to do our best work together and treat each other with care and respect? That's an overall question that I like to pose when I'm helping a board team set norms or protocols or operating agreements, whatever you call them. And it was interesting because I was fortunate enough to attend a summit on civility 2 weeks ago in Des Moines. And Scott Raker, do any of you know him? Have you heard of Scott Raker? He's phenomenal. I hadn't either, but he is the executive director of the Robert D. and Billy Ray Center, which is at Drake University. He was also a former legislator. And this is the question he poses to government entities when they're working on norms. And it resonated with me because it's almost the exact same question I used recently with another board team. So I'm going to ask you to be thinking about this question this afternoon. Did you all, thank you, Kim, for printing for me. So you recently, as Matt said, had a couple people, I think it was it Maka and Jane, develop a set of drafted norms. Is that correct? Have you all had a chance lately to read through them? Do you need a little bit of time to do that, or do you want to just dive in? That's up to you.
I think just dive in.
Yeah, just dive in? Okay, so now that I said I'm going to maybe, well, we'll just,
One?
I have one. I just should have separated it. But we'll go ahead and do it this way then. Okay, so here, if you're sure.
There's for you.
Did we?
Nope, we're good.
We're good? Kim's got it. Thank you.
Do you need
Got it?
that?
We can do that if you'd like. Go to the chair.
I've got one.
Okay, thank you.
Brady, you know.
All right, so we're going to go pretty low tech today. Everybody has one?
JP doesn't have this one.
The discussion,
Yeah.
we have an extra one right there.
Okay. So the board norms that Kim, thank you for printing, Kim, printed out are the same. I just numbered them instead of bulleted them just for easy reference for later. Okay. The only other edit I made was we changed our board award from better boardsmanship to be a little bit more contemporary to annual board award. But that's it. Those are your norms. When you look at your set of drafted norms, you can tell a lot of thought went into these. It's not easy to draft something to this depth. And it took a lot of thought and intentionality onto the different areas that you might want to address as a board team. It certainly, I think, is also helpful and to think about how the board can adapt in different situations using specific strategies. But what I'm going to invite you to do now is to really think about this discussion at a policy level. Now, when you think about policy, and I'm speaking to the policy people, so this is really easy. A lot of people don't know how to have this kind of discussion, so it's fun when you actually get to come and work with boards who do. When you're talking at the policy level, you set the ends, what you want to accomplish. It's that big picture vision. And what I'd like you to think about is how you can approach your board norms that way. And oftentimes when we see boards that draft their norms or develop their norms, that's how they're out. They're at the big picture approach. What are the big principles that are non-negotiable that we don't want to back away from? So I'm going to invite you to be thinking about your norms that way. Let me give you a couple examples of a couple different that some boards have written. Just as an example, what might sound like at that policy or governance level. And oftentimes we see also boards start their norms with words like "we will." Now, you don't have to do that. That's just sometimes boards do that. It's like a promise or a commitment. Here's a couple that I pulled from some sets of norms today. We will listen with an open mind and be willing to change based on evidence. High level, just big picture. Here's another one. We will be respectful and confidential. They did have a header on that one. That was board members, how they interact with each other. So that just gives you, another one was we will minimize surprises at the board table. So just a way to think about these as that big picture overarching approach. How does that sound, board? Does that sound okay? Okay. So here's what I'm going to invite you to do. We're going to do an activity where I'm going to take you through individual think time, and then small group discussion, and then whole group sharing out, where we think about what are the big principles that are inspired by these sets of norms. What are the big picture principles we can pull out and pull up that are written at that policy level that we all commit to? This was an interesting invitation, and I'll tell you why. I wrestled with how to approach this because and you all deal with this, when you have a couple board members that are, let's say, on a subcommittee, and you come back to the rest of the board and you know more information than the rest of the board, how do you bring the rest of the board into it so they feel like they have enough understanding that they can commit to it, yet that everybody is feeling ownership with some flexibility? That's not easy to do. So what I'm inviting you to do then is to have an individual think time, paired discussion, and let's do some whole grade sharing. Geez, can you think of what I was just thinking about yesterday? Sorry. Whole board discussion on what kind of agreements, what are your protocols or norms that you want to agree to, and then let's do a backward crosswalk to this and see, do they align? Is the intent captured? And is there anything missing? Okay, does that work? Anybody have any questions? Such a quiet, okay. And you all are eating, right? Okay, not the staff.
Just pacing herself. Pacing herself.
I don't know how long this is going to go,
Right.
so
Yeah.
I
Well, I
got
thought
I'm in lockdown
Yeah.
right now.
Once the box is gone, it's gone. So,
Exactly
yeah.
right.
No, I'm just kidding. All right.
Yeah, actually,
So-
can you repeat, I was just getting my mother's MRI results here, so could you repeat? You said it, sorry.
Which, oh, no, I just
Yeah, I was
said,
getting family medical stuff,
Everything.
just came through, so, Can you repeat that?
No, so all I was just saying is does anybody have any questions? We're just going to go ahead and dive in.
Okay.
Is that okay?
No.
Dive in with the individual
Yes,
work
right.
first of identifying what our big picture policy item is.
Right, so if you take a look at this discussion question, it's the same one that's up on the board. Maka has it in her PowerPoint, and I believe she has the paper. With the best interests of students in mind, I want you to be thinking about what will it take for us to do our best work together and treat each other with care and respect. And thinking about what do you need in place to feel safe, engage, collaborate, support, dialogue, and work productively. I'd like you to be thinking about board, push yourselves. What would this look like at the board table? What would the public see? What would your staff see? What would your families see? That can be really helpful to think about how to frame them, okay? So take some time and jot down 3, 4, 5 ideas.
No.
She's kind of a big dog.
Not a big deal. Would you have any questions that Speedy take away with that?
We didn't debate about it.
More than other,
Hey, Jane.
Yeah. I'm still running 140,000 pounds, 10-year-old.
Then you're going to talk to us, yeah. Or you're going to turn it into state. Yeah. Right. Anything else? So they try to pass it off. To Iowa, Fran. So then they brought up, which I didn't know was on the tip. The secondary agriculture. I had seen emails, but I'm quite honest. I just thought, look, if you didn't feel hurt, that's all of us. But I said, I don't understand this. So, one of those people that tell you something, you guys are. Because I reiterated that before he talked to you. Yeah. Too much faith. Some people that we thought was reason so that's
I mean, it's just been
you know, but I'm just, that's
we're right. Those conversations with everybody. So what do you you know we need a bigger package. So we're up on the dollars, but you have to understand that we can't get this in every single $100,000 chunk. Since it's the upset, the fact that we cut your ideas, or you upset that needs to be cut. We designed it to exactly how you had use the FT.
Yes, yes.
Flexibility. Like if we get to realign the staff, just not having that flexibility behind it.
Yeah.
That's what we're showing.
Yeah. That's been quite a bit.
Lisa is the mom.
I really don't care.
Okay, it looks like y'all have had
Well, they're
time
fine
to
with
really
that, too. They just want to be able
do
to
some
people.
deep thinking. What I'd like you to do now is partner up, and I'm going to invite board leadership to not be on this in the same pair. We usually do that, ask board leadership not to be together. And Maka and Jane, I'm going to invite you not to be in the same group since you co-authored the original, and then you can hear different perspectives. But so here's the big direction. Get in pairs. Or groups of three. There'll be one group of three if I did my math right. There's a reason I only taught 4th grade and not 5th grade, and I'm not kidding. I'm going to have you get in pairs or groups of 3 and share your thinking, share what you wrote and why. And then I'm going to have you select 4 or 5 items, doesn't matter, you decide how many, that you think are really important. And write it out, one on each piece of paper. I always get this wrong, so I'm going to say it again. One idea You think with a teacher I'd be really good at this? I'm not very good at this part. One idea per piece of paper, and write large so everybody can see it, okay? So the 4 or 5 things, however many you come up with, that you feel are non-negotiable, that you don't want to back away from, okay? And you, look at this beautiful room. You can even spread out if you want to.
Come on, Charlie, let's spread out.
Okay, so,
It may be you, Lisa.
does somebody have Maka she's taking care of? Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay,
I got Charlie.
I'll come around and give you your paper and your markers, okay, once you're set up.
Well, I think Mako will have to go through Tina and Charlie. Because Tina and Lisa can't do
Correct, that's right.
Yeah, but
Yeah, so then you and I will go together.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go with them.
that. Sorry,
All right,
Mako.
pass the Maka.
There's some rules about who would be. Oh,
So Maka, I have your cell phone again,
You want to come over here and take your phone?
Take my cell phone, Charlie.
Yeah, we're gonna see it again, there it goes. So,
you work over here, Charlie. Then you can start on it.
I like the clean shave look that you're rocking. I hope it wasn't because
Philip said it's occupation.
high school.
Occupationalism, like that, yeah.
You just never know.
We don't have anything to set it up on. We don't have
We're
anything to
supposed
set
to-
it up on.
yeah, you come up with, non-negotiable
And that's what we're gonna put on.
on here.
Yes.
I don't understand how this saved us $100,000 at all.
Student choice.
Yeah.
Because they had pools. Oh, yeah.
Not that you're saying.
No, not yet. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Does that make sense for what I did?
You did your homework.
I should look, and I'll look at it. Because then I got caught in meetings, so.
It's like putting pressure ice with that stuff.
For discussion on agendas.
I love it.
There's some tea, okay?
Awesome. Put that on there.
So, especially like this one. Right there.
That's what I did. I thought it tasted dry.
Well, I don't know, but I'm just used to it.
Okay.
All right. The next one I have, it was kind of off of what she said.
Yeah.
But what I wrote is the voiceover is not a practical surprise. We're saying that. It's all safe, so I don't think
I wrote,
As long as it's good.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So I actually, similar to this. I don't know, maybe not, some of the options are possible.
Yeah, well, yes.
But no gotcha.
So that's how we respond.
Respecting the time commitment other directors are investing regardless of their status within the community. And
No gotcha.
working together regardless of differing of opinions to improve student learning and knowing when you are becoming a hindrance to the conversation and being able to oh, yes. Don't necessarily all directors, regardless of their community understanding.
Yeah, right. That's interactive. Regardless of how.
I don't know, are we 3 for 3, or is that one?
Just after a year into my second term, I took a job with the actual candidate.
Oh, you do?
And they made me step because I was on the executive team. I thought it was weird, but. Yeah.
So then I would.
Give it back to you for good.
Thank you. They
It's winning.
But it's all right. I was busy.
Yeah, you're like, oh man, this was last week. Wow, I'm sure you learned a whole lot.
Oh, I learned a ton.
And especially the stuff that you have now.
Absolutely.
Brings all that to it.
I think that, yeah, because the knowledge that I was sitting and, you know, that stuff, and I think that comes in with fostering this connected understanding. And we should second guessing communities is probably citizens help us teams and but I just it just stands out to me as hugely important.
So I think this gets around.
Well, next year. My last one is kind of long. Yes, especially not. I really disagree that we're answering that we know and it's first and foremost. Okay.
Which is 2.4. 4.8.
No, I hear you. I'm trying to think of how. Because it's true, I've often said that, like, who holds you accountable? Well, what is it? And sometimes I know when I've said that, I've been like,
We have 6.6.
like,
6.6 plus.
well, I don't know, you know, maybe sometimes when I was saying that, I was referring to what we were.
1.8, 2.14.
But it's not just.
7.1. That's when we go to 6.5. So the only beginning reading is I would say being and almost I mean, that's how
What's that?
That's what what is the word?
Well, and here's,
I mean, we have to some things.
yeah, no, that's fine.
But I don't think we have necessarily that issue with blatant disrespect. Like, I don't think that's what we're doing. So, we were doing this.
Yeah.
It's a matter of,
I know, but that's
how
what now.
to share that out. Because there's also, I don't know,
Well, I like your idea of having script.
that's
Oh, I think it was.
Took notes, good stuff.
I-
But like, we need to set broad policies. And so that's what I feel like the three that we've talked about.
When we dive into
So
it,
you got, do you want to, I mean, well, no, we have
I think I will.
Okay, thank you.
So what I would say is,
Anyone who wanted to
disrespectful,
how did we do
so that's,
So, say we're doing something for
I
staff.
do have to say, maybe
Because
this
that's.
also ties
So,
into
so,
this,
yeah,
but
because.
something strong that I like, being compassionate, and somebody and not having somebody else speak on our behalf. I do like that.
Something like accountable to.
But either way, it's 54,000. The only point catches me. And I think about this up
Even if they don't vote.
Yes.
So I'd say accountable to the public. And maybe something like students. When the students. It's like accountable to the public.
Oh, yeah.
And I think especially.
Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
From that public umbrella.
Yes, as I do.
Because.
And see, I didn't even think in that perspective. I was thinking more like as a board meeting, you know, there's maybe
Feels like there
maybe,
should be.
I mean, you know, when somebody
Yes.
sends
A
something,
lot of
asks a
times
question,
really-
and there's side conversations.
Yeah, yeah, they like you.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
But that
It goes fast.
historical understanding, are you also the
No, no, I am the board secretary, but
and that's plenty of most.
it is,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, like I said, they have, as that historical information is so important, and just,
And you know, we're getting down to where there's not gonna be many people here that have that anymore. We're retiring
in terms of your role.
in this, well, in our building
Oh,
here,
here
here
you
at
go.
the ESC, one of my
Which makes sense.
Yeah, that's like me, that ESB, there's only two of us left that have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Back in the dark years when we were the crisis, and yeah, it's all these new young people.
Yeah,
but-
exactly, young, great people.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you always think, oh gosh, am I gonna remember pieces of it, but not all of it. I can usually get to where I need to get the rest of the information.
Well, that's great. How many board board members do you have up for election this year? Wow. Is Molly going to have to run this party election next year? Wow.
Yeah, I hope
It's
she
tough
gets back in.
when there's a majority of
Yeah,
us.
it is. It's nice to have her because she's not on the other side,
Yeah,
so she has that.
yeah. She's got that, she's very balanced. I was talking to JP though, sometimes it's hard when you're in the system.
It is,
And then you
yes.
have to read to the policy level.
Yeah.
And then you know a lot, but it's not policy.
You're exactly right. It could be a double-edged
Yeah.
sword.
Yeah.
Did I, not to stop, did you guys, yes, is she far along? Great, pretty, okay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see her, I only saw her via Zoom recently, I haven't seen her in person
Right.
for a year.
Yeah,
So,
so I do know that she has struggled through. Yeah, so don't, if you didn't know, please don't share it, but she did, she, that's why I think when you asked her, she's very trusted. She's around 26 now, you would definitely know she would have a story to something.
well, I'm gonna see her, it'll be a month, so.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We have a conference, over a 2-day conference.
Yeah.
If she goes, they should. It's in Jamaica.
Oh, I understand, but she's also a smart.
Yeah. Touch her before she went out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're really happy for her so far, so good. I like it.
Yeah, that's what.
And that, so, I guess if people saw us, they could see that we're,
Well, I'm gonna push the brain communication.
Something about her, yes.
Because I think,
Sure. Sure. Yep. Yeah.
that's just all I think.
But very nice, but also very
But
like
then there's almost always a point
huge.
where I'm like, and now what a crazy town. I'm the last time.
Wow. To the point where it's like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
That's really like,
Like, give us the looks of
Eliza, when I go to
Yeah.
city, they put that out.
this is, right, to 1.0.
Wait, hold on, Martha. Okay, start over, sorry.
They want to know, and they want to reserve some, like, how these people are noticing. So we have to. So I don't know.
That was one of the arguments they brought up. I think they also just.
Then I'm trying to also feel we're not trying to
Push back on that, push back on the credibility basis. But it's still more than 10 years.
try and stay on.
Yes, there was some bumps in the beginning, because that's what they brought, we got this. I said, you're not gonna say the principals, you guys can't be in here, that just because you're not the you don't have credit. The flip side was they're.
And you just wonder if he's like,
We have three of them.
assuming it, maybe he's just like, so, is it personal or if it's
I'm guessing totally personal.
Did you tell me when I was sitting at a bar?
I was telling her that. And I mean, I haven't told anybody about this, but he was talking about that last time he was down. I don't know what we were talking about. Some movie came on that he was, we were talking about how he aged. And Kyle's like, oh, yeah, sure. And he was like,
All right, walking back.
Okay. So I think we're ready to wrap it up.
I think that's it.
And Charlie, you got the tape over there. Did I give you tape?
No, not take
You know
over.
what? Look at this. I got it right here. And you have also, I think you have Bye, Monica.
Hi, somewhere where she could see. Yeah.
All right. It looks like everybody's done.
Big small JP.
So here's how I'd like
Did you fix it to Lou?
It's good to meet you.
This is your team, but I thought you.
So sorry that you couldn't be here in person, but I'm glad you're still here. Yeah, I've heard you're out of weather. I actually was sick yesterday, so I'm glad it all worked out okay today. Okay, so.
How many rooms is that?
They're just saying anything and I can just, I'm gonna let Molly. Yeah, okay.
I'll put it, that was our interpretation.
Shout out when you should move yours.
You did some.
You know why, but
You don't want to look like you're trying to kill it.
That's too bad.
Right.
So I want to call you kids because we joke with our older neighbors up there, we're calling them kids, so I'll say, hey kids, come on over, but I don't want to offend anybody, but that's what I feel like saying. So I'm going to come over closer, bring your chips, bring your snacks, come on over here. Get a little closer, unless you can see it okay, Ruthina, can you see? All right. You know what, just stay where you are, you're good. Let's have now, you had some really good conversation. I had the opportunity to walk around and actually hear you and engage in really good conversation, but now it's time for you as a board to have that same discussion. So, a couple things. One, I'd like those of you who, when you come to what you shared, and did you all put them in, you put them in order? And, okay, now I have to say, it's funny. Sometimes people just are very, like, straight lines. Sometimes they're all just really hickledy-pickledy, but, so I like how you guys are just very, what's the word I'm thinking of? Linear, thank you, very linear. Well, so let's talk about what you wrote and why, what that means to you. And as we do it, let's start to see if we came together. But we'll also ask time for questions, okay? So the job was to think about, as a big picture principle, what's it going to take for us to do our best work together with care and respect? What would you want the public, staff, families to be seeing? What do you want the board to be doing? Okay, so who would, is this team started? Okay. So Jane and Molly, why don't you talk to start?
Okay. Well, I'll do the first one since I'm the mentee. Embrace your role as mentor and mentee. You know, just talked about how we can all, you know, especially new people as you come on, but you know, embrace that people need help in understanding, in getting the right experiences, and learning about things, and so embrace that role.
And sometimes that's the same person,
Right.
right? Sometimes you are a mentor in one area, but you're a mentee
Right.
in another.
Right. And that should be okay. I mean, it's okay to say that. I keep coming back to the DPO meeting where I was a person on that thing, but, so, yeah, you just don't, you just admit things you don't know and or figure out and seek out somebody on the board.
And be generous with your knowledge to lift other board members up.
I stopped by your group when you were talking about this, and I shared that there's another team that we're working with that's struggling with that because some of the newer board members are kind of annoying some of the more veteran board members. Those are my words, not theirs. But when you've got people who have been on the board for a long time, and then you have brand new people, it's like drinking from water from a fire hose. And so you're talking about just being real with that and being accepting and patient. What does the rest of you think about that as a norm? Do you live with that? Do you think it's important?
yeah, it's good, you know, I think when we do these norms, you know, it's not, you know, you're establishing something that moves forward, hopefully, and that's something that's always going to be an issue. Is you're going to have folks who've been around and folks who haven't, and respect those.
Especially when, and I love it, this is your legacy, and you're passing this on to those that go ahead of you, right? And so with the board election, it's like coming up, whether you do or don't have new people, in the future you will at some point. It's a nice reminder. Anybody else? Okay.
listen with the goal of understanding, rather than, I think we both sort of had something similar on our individual sheets, rather than the goal of responding. Traditional thing
That people
that
do.
we talk about, yeah.
And that's probably encompassed by other things there. I just feel like listen, that is such an important piece, but it's probably encompassed by other things like respectful communication, so I don't know where that's from.
One of the things that I read in my first year being on the board, and one of the many books that were given to me, was you shouldn't have your mind made up before you come to the board meeting. And so that's why I think that one is so important.
Listening for those other perspectives, we talked about that earlier. What do you think, Charlie or Lisa or Rufina?
Yeah, no, I like it.
Yeah, we said practice active listening, which is right in
Whose was that one?
So true.
ours, and it's on the very
On the
end.
end.
All the way on the end.
On the other end, right.
Oh, you guys put this one over here too? This is yours? Oh, this is yours.
That's-
So can I hang those together?
Yeah, yeah.
Woohoo! Thanks. Okay. Do you want to add to that?
You know, that's it, right? That you listening to try to understand. I like this idea about not making your mind up and really being open to it. And sometimes I think with active listening too, there might be more of a visual piece to that you appear to be listening, and hopefully you're actually not just preparing.
That's interesting though, and you're a teacher, right? I remember a hard lesson learned with a child who was ADHD in my classroom, playing with a piece of fuzz, perseverating with that. And I had a long story. I had a professor come and watch and came back and asked me some good questions. And that child answered every single question I asked, but he never looked at me. And so it's a thing, right?
Yep.
It's a balance. How do we practice that empathetic, active listening with the goal of understanding, but not really knowing if people are really listening? They may just be, thinking and looking
Well,
out.
and that's the trap I think we fall into, right? Certainly as teachers, assuming people aren't listening because they're not responding in the way we've been conditioned to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea that if people don't make eye contact, they're lying. Well, that's not based in any science. So that's a great example, right? Somebody with ADHD who looks like maybe they're distracted
Right.
is paying attention.
Right.
So this is more of like what you bring to the table is like, I'm going to listen with the goal to understand. And we're not, later Lisa and I talked about accountability, and that, because that's like we need to bring that ourselves, and whether I can say you're not listening, probably not even my role as a board member to, or maybe that's not healthy to call people out, well, you weren't, because that's a lot of assumptions, and maybe that's something we say is don't assume intent, or, well, we'll get to that.
What do you think about the frame that JP's putting on it, that it's what you're going to commit to it?
I like that because the only person that, you have control over in following anything is yourself. So you can't put your expectations of this is how you should behave on anyone else. You have to behave or practice active listening the way that it works for you, because that's a good story that you shared about an ADHD student. I mean, I work with somebody that I swear they're never listening to me because they're moving a mile a minute, but they can sort of repeat back, and it's like, okay, I need to stop assuming that they're not listening because they're running around the office doing 25 things at once.
But still able to
Yeah.
respond and perform. Yeah, it kind of breaks into that stereotype that we think about. And thanks for framing it that way. That is a commitment that you bring. What's the next one?
Foster open, effective, and respectful communication. So that, I see respectful communication up there from somebody else. No gotchas. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that line up under that.
That looked like a theme for several of us, the respectful, I know for our group, all three of ours, that's why it's on my piece of paper,
Right, right.
fell into the whole
Easy.
communication range.
Right.
So I don't want to speak for Charlie and Maka, but just looking at what else is on the board, that seems like that's something important for all 7 of us.
I think no gotchas almost fits under there too, because that's just not, it's not effective or respectful to me.
Before we get to that, because this one is intriguing to me, I want to dive into
Okay.
that one. Does anybody else have anything else to say about this? This seems like it is a theme for all of you.
Well,
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
I'll say, we actually didn't put respectful on any of our 5 sheets, and I shared with JP. I'm a little uncomfortable with us labeling things as disrespectful. I think that can be a dog whistle sometimes, and it strikes me, one of the things that we did with the DPP last year is we used to have disrespectful language to teachers as a disciplinary offense. And what happened is we saw a lot of disproportionate discipline because culturally and socially, people have a wide variety of what they consider disrespectful. And I'm not really comfortable wading into that language. I think, we only have one member of color on the board. Maybe someday we will have more. And but when we say you're being disrespectful to me, that can so often be targeted towards our Black and brown people as a way to silence. I just don't like it. I'm wildly uncomfortable with the notion of saying, don't be disrespectful, be respectful, because we all interpret it that differently. Which is why JP and I tried to focus on actual things we should be doing, like active listening and no gotchas. Like we tried to dissect what we thought a respectful behavior looks like, rather than just saying the broad, be respectful, don't be disrespectful. We tried to dissect it on a different level and say, what are some norms about what we agree respectful listening looks like?
Just rather word it in the positive rather than the negative, I guess.
Right.
Rather than be this way rather than don't be this way.
Right. That's why we said
Yeah.
proactive listening.
Right, okay.
We think that that's like, when we think about how is it to be respectful in a discussion, and how do you be a respectful listener? What we really think is be a proactive listener. And same with what you guys said, listen with the goal of understanding. That, absolutely. And then we also put act in good faith and assume positive intent. Again, proactive things.
So I'm trying to think, a different way of saying, because I like the part about fostering open and frank conversations without even saying the word respectful, because, you're right, respectful is, subjective to some people. And, we can all agree that me standing up and cursing out everybody probably isn't respectful. But it could be things that I feel comfortable in saying to some board members because of the relationship I have, that other board members may find, oh, that's disrespectful. But because of who I am and, some things that I can sort of code switch, and certain people can pick up on the code switching as not being disrespectful. So that's my long way of saying I like picking apart respectful in a way that's different outside of just saying respectful. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning your farewell speech already?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Brady.
Okay.
So, anybody else, I think this is the kind of conversation that really matters. So let's just keep going a little bit farther. So you're saying, and what I really appreciate is you're saying, let's get an agreement that this word respectful may not work for us, but then what does it look like? So if we, if we cross out effective and say, and by the way, what's going to happen next is we decide One thing we can do is I can type this up and get it back to you and then have a small group just finalize them. I can type them up, put them in a draft form and give them back to you to then just look at and see, you decide what that is. But you've got some things hanging together here. So foster effective, open, effective communication, frank with decorum. I mean, those all kind of fit. Would all of you be willing to support that as it stands if I cross out respectful?
You also have things like you can honest, transparent, right? I mean, there's probably other words like Luann saying that, or Lou,
Yeah.
sorry, is saying there that if you wanted to include as you wordsmith that you definitely could, that I think get at that term respectful in a more accurate fashion.
Yeah, because it's sometimes, right, when people speak frankly, that is interpreted as disrespectful, right? But we want people to be, again, and so I guess I was gonna ask a little decorum. Like, what do you guys mean by decorum and how do you define that? Because, I think we get into, like, standing up, we probably could agree, standing up and cursing, right? And I would say, right, if we're showing these norms, we're probably trying to model what we want to see too, like in the boardroom, and so, I guess decorum, what's that look like to those?
That's the same question I had, JP, is if we're uncomfortable with the word respect, which I understand why we're digging into that word, but I also think that it's a meaningful word. I think we can do these positive definitions of it. I think decorum probably deserves perhaps that same consideration. I do think there are generally appropriate ways of behaving in a board setting. So I don't think we have to shy away entirely from that. I think as people keep joking, like cursing is inappropriate. I'm not sure because I can't see exactly, you did show me the posters, I'm just not sure, is this where we are itemizing what we mean by decorum and respectful? It's something that my group talked about. So for example, for me, something that I want to address now and for future board members to have to understand is that I think that not raising our voices is a matter of decorum. So that's something, do we have to specify that so that it's included in our definitions?
So those are the things that I'm uncomfortable with because like how do you define raising your voice? Like at what decibel level has somebody raised their voice? And somebody may think that decibels of 96 is a raised voice and others may think it has to be 120. And I'm not interested as a board in like policing what we mean by these subjective terms. I think that's when we get away from our why and the reason that we're all on the board, and we get mirrored down with things that are going to stop us from doing the work that we need to do.
Well, we can put, the whole point of norms is to provide guidance, right? So I think we can provide guidance about not raising your voice and not cursing. I mean, that's guidance. So that you're aware of it, and you can still decide because you're an adult about what you think is appropriate and what isn't. But the purpose of the norms is to provide that kind of guidepost to current and future members.
I think Molly's on our last one kind of encompasses all of that, and I don't know if maybe now would be a good time to.
Yeah, let's do that.
And that is model the behavior and values you wish to see in students and staff.
That makes sense to me.
I think that's everything. I think that brings it all together. Even if we just had to have one thing, just that's my opinion. If we just had to have one, that would be mine.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. And I mean, if we're getting hung up on respectful, just in us 7, now we have 14,000 students and how many parents and families who might have I mean, I think that's the thing about that, we assume what that means. But modeling behavior we'd like to see, even though that's probably broader, but I think we're, you know, like if you have a principal, that's just, well, that's one of their evaluating, they get evaluated on that, like do you behave in a way that the community would expect of an educator? And so I don't know why we wouldn't hold ourselves to the same standard.
I like that too, because I think of what you were saying earlier about active listening and what that means. For some of us, it helps if we have something to twiddle in our fingers, for example. And I was a teacher who acknowledged that we're taught that, right, about our kids that need to do things. We also know that we don't allow our students to be on phones or on screens because that's not the same thing as needing to twiddle something. So I think this modeling the behavior we expect of the students is probably going to be the best way to provide guidance to the adults.
Can everybody, okay, can live with this one? Modeling, looks like modeling behavior and values. Can I have a thumbs up from the board members? Yeah? Okay. That's values too. Okay, let's go back then. Do you still want one around communication? If we change it a little bit, do you still think that's important?
I think so, and I agree with taking out the respectful, and I wouldn't want to get more specific, like I wouldn't want to include, you know, raising the voice or cursing, or I think that's too specific and too in the weeds on it, so.
Okay. Looks like we have just a few more.
Mine had honest and transparent.
Oh, yeah, and were those ideas that you had?
Yeah, I just said, yeah, there's a couple other words if you're looking to add some more detail to it.
Great. Honest and transparent. Okay. Great. Somebody talked about no gotchas. I'm going to represent those that would be looking at this for the first time saying, I don't know what y'all mean by this. So why don't you unpack this and let's see if we can phrase it in something that or have we already taken care of it?
Well, I think that goes to the open and honest. You know, if you're open and honest about something, you know, for example, maybe you would share that idea out ahead of time, certainly give Matt and his team a heads up that you're not, you know, because I think this assumes not a positive intent.
Okay.
That you're sort of holding information for that moment when you're in public and you can spring it on somewhere, probably to advance an agenda or, and again, I'm not speaking about anybody here, but some ego involved or some of those things where it's like proving a point that isn't open and honest. So,
Okay.
I mean, I do think that kind of.
So if the words may not make it to the final list,
Yeah.
but it matches here and it's okay. And it might, it's not my list of choose, but that's what it is. Okay. Any thoughts before we move on? Okay, so we have be prepared for discussion on agenda topics, act in good faith and assume positive intent, and accountable to the public, especially students. Who'd like to start with one? Whose were these?
These were all JP and I's.
Okay, which one would you like to start with?
I think be prepared for discussion on agenda topics because it's first, and I think it could be its own, but it could also fall equally under model the behavior and values you wish to see in students and staff. I think we want our students and staff to show up prepared, ready to do the task at hand. So I'm not convinced we need it as a separate norm, but it might fall under that norm.
But that, you know, and if I think of it moving forward, I mean, that would be one piece of advice I would give to anybody on the board, like just be ready, like read the board packet, ask questions ahead of time, you know, just some of those, you know, I don't want to assume people know that, so coming in, that would be one of those nuts and bolts things.
I can tell you this is one that causes tension on boards. When people, you hear the packet being ripped at the board table. And so if you're thinking about, you know, something that you all want to commit to, I mean, that would, people might not assume that under this bigger goal of modeling behavior, people might not think about that, especially if you're talking about newer board members. Just something to think about. Want to keep it separate?
I like keeping it separate because I think that highlights something that's important to us and what it actually means to be a board member. That you just don't walk in a room and say, oh, yeah, I didn't see that agenda item, please tell me more. But you actually do the digging in, you ask the questions, and it helps with the no gotcha moments too, from your standpoint, where you don't feel as though, oh no, it's a gotcha moment for me.
What do you think, Charlie?
As long as I don't have to be an expert on the agenda 9.
No.
Appendix 9.
No, you need to read all 385.
The schematic.
This is coming from the guy that like caught the like $12,000 discrepancy in the special ed supplemental aid request, Charlie. That's rich. Your concern.
What do you think, Maka? Are you okay with that one?
Yeah.
Okay, she's good with it. All right, let's go down to acts in good faith and assumes positive intent.
Yeah, that was ours too. You know, another, kind of going to the act of listening, like this is something you know, I don't know your intent. I can't possibly look inside your heart and see. But I myself can act in good faith, just like I can listen to you. And then my check is I'm going to assume you've got all the right things in mind. And just assume that, rather than the other way, right? And then I get into judgment and shoulds and questioning and making up stories in my head. But if I just assume you've got the students in mind, and that, you know, I just think that's a good base to start with. And I don't know that if it falls into open, effective communication.
I like everything you just said.
I do too.
I feel like we need to add that some of what you just said about, you know, with keeping the best, what we want best for our students.
Yeah. Well, that's a segue to the next one.
Yes. Do you want to add that? Do you want to add that? And I know my vote doesn't count, but I love that one. Please keep it
Yeah,
separate.
I like it as separate too. That's a good one.
No, seriously, I believing the best can carry you so far. It can.
I mean, you know, the simple way to keep student-centered, I mean, I think that's the simplest way to say that it's student-centered.
Yeah. We did a webinar, well, Jane Trey, we did a webinar a couple of years ago for new board presidents, for board presidents, yeah. And it was board president and superintendent on our webinar, and the superintendent, she's actually Vicki Murillo, who's at Council Bluffs, she said, believe the best. Just believe the best. And that has carried me to a long way. Okay, accountable to the public, especially students. Can you talk about that and what that means?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right, when we're setting down, I mean, norms, and then sometimes they sound rule-y. And I know just as a teacher too, if I'm gonna put a rule out there, who enforces it? Because if there's no enforcement to a rule, I don't believe that's a rule. I mean, it's just a nice idea. So there's really only one way that board members are held accountable, and that's voters. There's no mechanism to discipline or whatever. There's just nothing exists other than there are people who voted for you, and then as Lisa said, including the students. Well, that's our point, right? And they are part of the public, you know. But then this also includes taxpayers. You know, we are accountable to them, but their only mechanism to hold us accountable is voting or not. So I guess that's where we were kind of coming from, like who, if you break these, who holds you accountable, and it's the public.
What are your thoughts about that?
I agree that school board members are held accountable by voters. But I personally am very struck by the notion that my job, my task, my purpose on this board is to provide an education for students. So my statement would be more in line with accountable to students, to be accountable to students. Frankly, there are members of the public that I've heard from out here that I'm not going to be accountable to. But I've never heard of students tell me anything. And my response was, well, I don't have to do that.
Would you agree that we're responsible to the community?
Oh, yeah. I'm responsible to the community. I think we're responsible to provide an education for students. That's our responsibility.
And I think, Charlie, what JP and I were thinking about goes back to kind of what he was saying about what happens if somebody violates the norms, right? The 7 of us are not the accountability police of each other. And it's not our job to enforce rules or hold each other accountable. At the end of the day, to me, if somebody thought that a norm was being violated, we also would have to go back and say, however, we're accountable to the students. We're accountable to the community. And so while I may disagree that this is happening, I'm not the board police. You know who the board police is? It's the people that vote us in and out of office. And so that's kind of an overarching reminder of who we're doing this work for. It's not us 7. It's that big community. And that's why we put especially the students. I think we're accountable to our teachers and our staff. To me, we're accountable to more than just the students, which is why we specifically drew that group bigger. But we wanted to highlight, at the end of the day, it is first and foremost about the students. If that makes sense of how we landed on that.
I don't think any of this was done to police anybody. I just want,
I disagree.
I think like the intention of this, and I think, Ruthina was the one that brought it to the board retreat in October. You were the one that put the norms on the agenda for the October retreat, right? Yeah.
Probably, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I honestly, I trust you.
I view this as, the purpose of this is to bring out our best selves and to remind us all what we think that looks like.
So what do you think? Do you want to keep this one? Board members?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Charlie, you want to now? Okay. Awesome. Wow. You made this very easy for me. This is the messy part, but this is my most favorite part right here, is hearing your discussion and where you all land on what matters most to you. So one of the things to be thinking about, and you just kind of talked about that, how are you going to use these? You're going to have to continue to talk about that and decide. Where will they, once they're finished, where are you going to put them? Are they going to be hanging in the boardroom? Are they going to be on the website?
I would personally put them on our website. Whatever we do and whatever we commit to should be accessible to the public so they know this is also what's guiding us in addition to the policies we set that guides them. So, in order for us to sort of hold ourselves accountable, it only works if it's out there and people know this is what we are agreeing to.
Well, think about it. Go ahead, Maka, sorry.
I agree, and that sort of is relevant to one of the last comments about accountability to each other, not policing each other. I do think that as a committee of people, that it's okay for us to say, like, a common phrase is, let's push pause for a moment. Like, okay, we've gone a little bit off of our focus. Let's push pause. I don't consider that policing ourselves, but I do think it is a mechanism for maintaining decorum. So I think that that's something
Well, and Micah, both those things you said to me is striving for clear communication. Right? Like, wait a second, I don't understand. Can you explain again? Or press pause. I mean, if things are getting heated, which I don't think we. But again, this isn't about us necessarily. This is about boards. But just to say, hey, I'm not hearing what you're saying right now, and so I think, to me, that's effective communication. Asking for, not and part of frank communication too. Like, I should be able to not be worried that I'm going to offend you by asking you to clarify your statement or repeat something, or I, ask people to talk louder. Those things that are just for me to do my job. I have to be able to hear what you're saying and understand what you're saying, and therefore I may need. I should feel empowered and vulnerable enough, right, to be vulnerable to ask, hey, I didn't quite understand what you were saying, rather than in the interest of some kind of decorum, just pretending like I understand.
Right, good connecting of the dots there.
Okay.
I like that.
Well, and I would say, I don't, this is a little outside the box, but, at school, when we want people to follow something, and we're on the PBS model, we have signage. So I don't know if there's the potential to wordsmith this up and have some signage in the boardroom.
I noticed there's 7 of them, just like there's 7 of
Oh,
us.
there we go.
Just like that.
I mean, in wrestling, the wrestling coach just put something on there. We had to hit it every time. I think it was pride. Right? And we had to hit it.
Believe.
Trying
to
picture
this.
Well, I mean,
One
we
thing.
do have a beautiful wall right behind our board table that has the apple. And as Jane pointed out, there's 7 of these, and they could perhaps be strategically located.
Or in front, or in the, front.
Yeah, or in front.
Underneath, yeah.
It's
I
just-
like the in front because if we ever move to the Tyler building, we could move with us.
But those are both different ways that board teams have addressed it, hanging them right there in the boardroom where the mission is, and then also sometimes it's right in front. So, and the website, it speaks volumes, doesn't it? This is how we're going to work together, especially if you're thinking about running for the board. This is what we expect. I mean, there's a lot of positives here. And I really appreciate you were talking about what we are and aren't going to do in terms of honoring these. We will commit to them personally, but we're not going to feel like we're the board norm police. Although some boards do take time, I don't know, every 6 months or once a year, to stop and say, how are we doing? Not as individuals, but as these norms. How is it going? Are they still working for us? What could we do better? And so that's just something to think about. You can do that holistically.
I think more effective than calling others out is to just model them yourself. Right?
Say that again, Jane, I'm sorry.
More effective than calling others out is just to simply model them yourselves.
True.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Maybe modeling them as a board would help us with some public comment.
Well, that's option C.
One can always hope. Do you want to look back at the drafted norms to see if anything was missing? Or do you feel, I saw some of you looking at them already, do you feel like you captured what you wanted?
I do.
feel like those are.
I like those.
I like
Yeah,
those.
this captured it.
Okay. Staff, do you have anything that you want to, any insights that you want to share?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you all have been patient with me.
Are we still here?
Yeah, we're still here. Yeah. Well, I think even like what you were talking about with the accountability piece in the last one, this you guys might have said some of it is, I mean, posting them makes you accountable to it, right? And that's some of the conversation you're having is, I mean, I think that we talk about that a lot when we put something out there that we're going to do it. Now we're held accountable to doing it, right? I mean, it's that public acknowledgement of how this is, we're going to act and behave with each other. And I think a lot of these things that you guys are identifying, right? I mean, I think even shows when we look to those old board norms that we pulled down, I mean, some of those things aren't the commonplace for us today. And it's like you can tell the growth in the work, which I think is really cool. Like that this is now the new level we're shooting for with the things you guys are identifying in comparison to maybe what probably could have been considered pretty low bar on some of those norms in the past.
I think this process here gets us to that place. So
Yeah.
I really thank you for coming.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And for
Better food next time?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. If I had a full buffet, that'd be nice. No, I think I agree with Matt, and the thing that I like is I see some symmetry between your board norms and how we try to hold ourselves accountable as administrators, and I think that we talk a lot about the board and the administration trying to be a cohesive team, and so even though we didn't participate in this conversation, and maybe we use different words, we talk about a lot of those same concepts about how our leadership team functions, and so if we're both functioning kind of the same capacities, that's going to help us collaborate and work better together overall.
Great, so it's just in line and sync with what you all are doing. Great.
Excuse me, I think the phone is covering the microphone, so I can barely hear. Something can cover the microphone.
It might have been a finger.
It was the Jimmy John's box, I'm sorry.
Can you hear me, Maka?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's hard.
Oh, okay, that was Chase before, so you can always disregard what Chase is saying.
Oh, that's something they all do too, so we're all.
Yeah,
very
at least I think it was Chase, but I sort of spaced off a little. So, not modeling my good behavior. For me, I think that being prepared for discussion on agenda topics is, as I've watched boards who have functioned well and boards who have not functioned well together, that is a really important piece, because what can happen is the unprepared board members can really derail things with questions that just aren't appropriate, or that derail a vote that might be going in a certain way. And so I think thinking about it in the future, as I talk to prospective board members too, I think that that's important. It's a lot of work, and there's no pay. It's the thankless job.
You're just finding this out?
So I like that one. I think the one too that I always think about for boards is, and we went through, COVID, and we were virtually unanimous on all votes as a board. And it was, you had sort of just a scramble mode mentality, which we had to have. We had a common enemy almost with the state and some of the politics that was going on. So I think one of the more challenging things for boards comes when there isn't a unanimous vote, and there is a little bit of a difference of opinion on the board, is how you have those discussions in an engaged manner that's, frank, forthright discussion, but then being able to move past that and to say, okay, I voted the way that I felt was the right vote. I know where the board's at. I'm not going to belabor this point. I'm not going to continue down that road. We're going to vote. We're going to run our meeting, and then we're going to move on. And sometimes the vote doesn't go your way. And I think that's up there. But to me, that's been another point that boards have struggled with, because then it creates the meetings after the meetings where people don't let it go, and they try to keep that going. So,
I actually think you gave me this advice, Ruthina. And it's the single best advice anybody has ever given me on school.
Sure.
And it was that, but it was, you get to go to the table, you get to advocate for your position, you say your piece, and then there's a vote. And then what we have to do is, regardless of what your position was, you're committed to the outcome of the vote. Because we're board members, and the time for dissent is during the discussion phase. But once the board votes, the committed board members, the functioning board members, all rally behind the direction that the board is going. And you don't try to divert and relitigate and rehash something that was the single, I think, bit of, and I had never thought about it from that perspective, coming on as a new person working on a board. And I found that to be invaluable advice, to the point that I don't know if we want to add an eighth. I don't know how you norm that, but
Support the will of the board.
well, maybe that's it. Yeah.
That's a pretty important concept. Now, you may not want to add one, because you do have an eighth member. You do have a board superintendent team. You could have eight, really.
Yeah.
No, I mean, trying to be facetious, but that's an important concept, whether you put it on a norm or not. That's vitally important to the integrity of your working relationship.
I feel like that falls under maybe.
That's what I thought, Jane. I mean, there's a few ones that would really fit under, right? It's probably about, is it important enough to you that it, needs to be one of the 7 per se, or an eighth like that. But I was thinking even model the behavior and values you wish to see in students and staff. I mean, the idea about once there's a group decision, then we go along, we support the decision, or if you're part of a team and you know, how do teams operate, highly functioning teams, how do they operate together? So, and that could be some of your refined work with these as they go on. Like, okay, now what do these norms mean to us? Like, what are some of these case in point examples? So I think you do have it encapsulated, and one of those is probably just an important one to be thinking about because like Brady said, I mean, those are the hardest ones to put back together, right? It's not the ones where we all have consensus and agree. It's when we have a little bit of differing opinion about what to do.
And after the election, I recommend, and I'm sure you were thinking this anyway, if you have new board members, when the new board team is in place, take these and talk about them. Why you adopted them, what each of them means, and those are the kind of points that you can bring out. But to your point also, this should be a living, breathing document that you're allowed to amend over time and continue to clarify. Kristen, any thoughts that you've had?
You know, I'm reading, obviously listening to the discussion, but reading over them and just looking for any gaps, you know, anything that could be missing. And I really feel like it's very well balanced. You know, I like what you just said, Lisa, and I do feel like that deserves space in there somewhere, whether it's standalone or, you know, nested under one of these. But it does feel really well balanced. I can relate as an administrator, not a board member, to these same, you know, norms and goals. Like Chase said, it should mimic, you know, how we approach our leadership roles in the district, and that feels right that it would be the same norms, you know, as our board. So I don't necessarily have anything to add other than I think it feels balanced, and I do like what Lisa said as well. I feel like there's a space there.
Amy, thank you.
I think they're really nice and comprehensive as well. One thing I was listening for during the one that's related to communication there was one that we have with each month for our elementary IDS principals, our secondary group that we do the same work with, and then our teaching and learning directors is equity of voice. But what I was thinking about around that is, I'm wondering though, your meeting protocol really calls for that standard already, so maybe it's not one that's necessary. That was what I was thinking about as well.
Thank you. What would you like for next steps? Do you want to just take this work and you all refine it and bring it to life? Do you want me to type it up and bring it back to you?
We would love you to type it up.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that.
I don't know if you know, we don't get paid.
I did know that. I did know that. I'm happy to do that, and it'll just be in a draft form. It won't be that much different. I may put them into complete sentences, but I won't, you know.
Yeah.
Yours, I do not have to do a lot of work with. Let me just say it that way.
Okay.
They're beautiful statements.
Because I think once we have them typed up and at our next retreat or our next meeting, find a way to have another discussion just as a check-in, because, you know, it's been a long day for some and you might be like, well, let me sleep on it. At least for me, I like to sleep on things and come back and look at it again and say, oh, maybe tweak it a little bit here.
Right. Okay.
So that would be helpful.
I will do that. I'll send it back to you. You've already talked about how you might use them, how you might publicize them. That's great. Let's just go around the room real quick from board members. What's a key insight that you have from today? Charlie, I'm going to start with you. Charlie.
Well, it's an insight I think I've seen since I was elected to the board, that this group of people have a way of getting together and working together collaboratively in almost all instances. Now, you've made some bad decisions, I'm not saying that, but we still are going ahead together. Mm-hmm. And we are doing great things in this district that somehow the state is not on board.
Agreed.
Jamie?
Oh, okay. I mean, I think it just illustrates what I've always known is that we have a lot more in common than we have different in this board, and that we all want what's best for the students and the teachers and the community.
Great. Maka, since I'm holding you and you're next, do you want to go?
Yeah, I would just say exactly what you said.
Ditto. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of different with both folks. I mean, I don't want to say it's refreshing because it's kind of always like this, where we can come together, we can have And we're not, I don't feel like we tiptoe around things or we're avoiding topics. We kind of get right to it and we have the conversation. And, you know, we get a nice product out of it.
I would just say the process of getting here was really a good one. My takeaway was that I liked hearing what people had to say, how people thought about certain comments, how we could do it. I think the process was a huge part of it, and it would be nice to have you make it make nice sense of all that too.
It won't take long. You have beautiful work. You made it very easy for me.
Yeah, I would agree with Molly that the process was very helpful and meaningful just to see everybody's idea get the life and the voice. So I enjoyed it, although it's been a rough going. Just personally, not bored.
No, understood.
No, I think that's my takeaway too. I'm really grateful that you came, Lou. I didn't know how we were going to kind of go through this massive document in one night and distill it down, and I was not optimistic that we were going to get it done, but we did. And I think it's because of your facilitating and the process. And so gratitude is what I feel.
Thank you. I'm going to put that back on y'all though. Again, I can say that because we have kids in Texas with 2 grandkids. No, seriously, you all had a frank conversation. You had to dig, roll up your sleeves and had some pretty honest conversations about what you could and couldn't support. And to your point, it's the conversation that matters most. And that's why I'm suggesting after the election, and then once a year, just take them down and just talk about what do they mean to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your commitment to yourselves and to yours as a board, but also to all you do for the students and staff. We really do appreciate you. Thank you. That's great.
Thank you, and I seriously can't thank you enough for coming down after your own work day and agreeing to spend a couple hours with us to hammer through that.
Wow.
So I appreciate it.
Thank you. If you would have seen how fast I was driving on the interstate, I will just say I'm grateful I didn't get a speeding ticket.
There we
Matt
go.
knows, I texted, I go, I'm going to be just right there. I was just, so anyway, normally I don't drive that way, but I can take my time home. Would you mind, we have a quick evaluation for feedback if you don't mind, and I think, Kim, you've got it.
Yeah.
And Kim, you didn't get to give insight. Did I skip
Nope,
right
you're
over
good.
you?
I think they're on the right track. I do.
Okay.
Yep, I really do. I think they're good.
Well, that means a lot, Kim, because you've seen tons of iterations of
That's what I was just
boards.
thinking.
Yep.
It's true.
Thank you.
And Lou, please do take one of the
Yes.
I think I
boxes.
will.
Yeah.
Thank you. And now it's an intern.
I think Matt's gonna read it. I'm just here to support.
Terry. We'll get him.
Yeah, give him one.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you.
We make his work
What do you have pulled up on there, Chris?
probably longer.
I have the bulleted list.
Okay.
Is that what you want to pull up? But I pulled that up because it has links to everything. in
Okay.
it, that timeline and the 2 videos,
Good.
as well as the folder of all those graphics too.
Mhm.
I like that, man.
What's that?
I said I like that change. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and so,
We've been sharing that statement with Brady. We've been working on that
Oh.
LGBTQ statement.
yeah.
So then I thinned down the Twitter post too.
Okay.
just-
I edited it again on the top. I don't know if you saw.
I'll take a look.
I'm trying to stay away from saying anything specific about the current legislation.
Yeah, I just like the affirmation. I just felt like that's what we needed. It's like, not only do we have to see it's not, but, we embrace our LGBTQ students
Right.
for who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I mean, once you,
I don't really need to pick a fight, but at the same time, I don't want people to feel like
I
we
think it's
agree with it
important.
or that we don't support them, and so it's,
I think it's important to get out there.
yeah. Well, we got a couple more questions on it again today, so, at admin council.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
People are wondering, so,
no, it's not. It's,
yeah. Well, it'd be good to do it now instead of reacting to when something gets passed too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just extra, right?
So I'm going to take some photos and send them to our communication director, who's going to put them on Facebook or Twitter. So I'm going to pretend like you guys are just talking.
Keep rolling. Keep rolling. Okay, good.
You're not for a while.
I normally just laugh at JP. Yeah.
Love the process that you're taking.
Okay, did I tell you I'm walking through that?
You are, and you were gonna prompt me to stand your pulse check up and then.
Let's not talk about me.
Okay.
We're not talking.
Okay. What am I doing? All these extra. That's right.
See, that's a good one. See how much fun we're
There we
having?
go.
That's my
Thank you
daily.
so
I mean,
much.
I don't promote a ton.
I just walked around the corner like, what am I doing?
Where?
Yeah,
is
what are we doing?
thing? I just
Yeah,
had it.
what are we doing?
Yeah, they're all waiting. I'm like, I really I didn't understand.
I understand that.
Well, I don't know where it is.
Sorry. No, I do not. I was gonna say. This seems like caught my throat there.
Person in our marketing, Molly, for the camera. Yeah. And for our guest speaker. Our marketing, our new assistant marketing director. Take it away.
It's all right.
Please.
You know how we do, talk about, curriculum, and we were looking at data points.
No,
So-
do you need a break?
I think we might cord, my computer cord.
Oh.
I was so heavily
Like,
engaged.
Yes,
yeah,
no,
okay.
okay.
When it wasn't such to do math problems, like we have them do reading of books. Oh, that would be great. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, because you
Like
think
some
about
big
what it is.
complex.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
someone
an
that people
engineer,
are looking
like-
up to, exactly, and going, oh my
Yeah.
God, and then they work through like math instead
Yeah.
of doing, you think about, we celebrate that with reading, and it's awesome.
Yeah, why don't we do the same thing with math?
Right. It's a really good idea. Thank you. I have one a year. It's
I
just-
was gonna look one a day.
Oh, yeah.
Visiting mathematicians.
Exactly. Just trying to think of things on the cheap that we could do to connect with the community that would also give us ways to
And then when I
celebrate.
scroll down to.
There's
the
gotta
right,
be, like, even UI athletes that are doing.
But no, that, I did that. I don't remember seeing that piece, but it was.
And then it brings it, that'd be cool.
No, these are just little.
Oh, I was saying, no, the earrings.
No, they are.
I wanted.
Did you get that ring I was looking at?
One a day, no.
No, you.
Oh, were you looking at this one, the
No,
blue, the
no.
aquamarine one?
No, I was looking at the one that.
Just saying, I'm sure everyone will be saying.
That, I looked at that one, and I was looking at myself like, oh.
Don't worry, stop.
New ideas,
Yeah.
I haven't thought,
It was-
like,
it was
that's a different deal, so.
Yes, I know exactly which one you were talking about, because I looked at it too.
What kind of sandwich do you want?
It was nice, and
Looks
I
like
tried
it's
to show it to Malone.
Turkey or
and he was
ham?
like,
Turkey or
Oh,
ham?
that's nice.
Okay. Yes, we all got
I
it.
even tried to remind them
Thank
that,
you.
his anniversary's coming up. We're just waiting for Chase, he went to get his cord. And Charlie,
Chase?
and Charlie.
Excuse me.
And,
I brought home a few things and I told Jason it was all for the kids. And he's like, our kids? And I'm like,
I have to.
district kids.
oh. He's like, for the kid.
Well, technically our kids. He's like, how does somebody help our children?
No, well, because you're leaving something for them that they can actually inherit.
You know what those kids want? You know what they want of mine? You know what they
Let's
want?
take 5 minutes, people.
They want my phone, that's what they want me to see.
Okay, I'm gonna take one of Terry.
Yep, thank
Oh,
you.
that's nice.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, Terry.
That's someone else earlier, put on the Iowa Tax Base Association. And they really brought together people to start to think about.
I guess, yeah.
Help people become more civil.
Yeah. Call the ruckus.
Yeah, exactly, it was so fascinating because it was what Rachel said. It's just there looked at back in the 90s.
You guys can put those in your little fridge for lunch tomorrow.
Well, we're not just
These kids who
disagreeing
refuse
with
to have
beliefs,
something
but
right, but then they
perspectives.
were five grades.
And I know, I was like,
And then we show it to them.
But we, I mean, I was, like that's one of the things to do.
Well, and it has been, but now it's hard to disagree, or you have to.
Yeah.
And so it's.
This is reminding me of your basketball team.
What's that? Oh, the pickle? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, new, I think they just rolled it.
Yeah.
So
Maybe you have to change it.
I don't know, it's one of those things.
I know.
It's what? Yeah, I think it's a statement.
I can remember some of those moments in teaching. I taught a couple like that, yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah, and then we had a lot of, it was like a tech, sort of flying. And so then I just said, well, tech guys said, yeah, you know, my whole lot of A parts. And I'm like, you know, because they got it. This and that's a data. Sometimes like this is so long. What do you didn't want to say it's
So it's
so
not
well,
just-
so they mess it up.
They can look at it and you can go
It's
over
just
there.
yeah,
It's
it's a
safe.
tool, so it's safe, and so then.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really just, you know, especially when you think about.
But I mean, they can react.
So then when you get to that, it teaches us
I couldn't find them.
first thing you're asked.
Yeah.
What?
Right.
Yeah.
Matt, we're just waiting on Jane. But I couldn't find them.
Who?
Terry.
Yeah.
He might have went out to the break.
You walk through?
Yes.
He might be back in his office.
Oh, but it got creepy, thank you. It got kind of creepy, so I didn't go too far.
It's real close to dark, or what was
Gets a little
Well, it
dark.
was too quiet.
Yeah.
It's like the school district, so wait. You know, it could be like the school district. Thinking they're getting chased, and instead they get beat.
Now we lost Amy.
Do you think Jason's hiding around gonna pop out and like
Michael Myers.
stab you to death?
Black people don't.
I knew that's where you're going.
Exactly.
I was like, you'd be like, you'd be first.
Exactly. I'm out. As soon as I hear something that don't sound right, y'all can go investigate. Thank you. All right.
I know. I just.
Thank you, guys. We're gonna keep on moving and move on to the next part of marketing the district.
No, I had my mouth full of chips, so I'm gonna clean that up here. Okay, so we had a few things we wanted to share with you that we've already started working on from a marketing perspective. This has came up, we know, in a few of the conversations around the online learning program when we've talked about budget reductions and their desire to see us market the program more, which is certainly a part of the overall marketing strategy, but it's just going to be a new reality for us as a district in general that, we've traditionally and been very honored and humbled just to serve whoever walks through our doors. But even public districts are going to be our competitors in a sense now with new ed savings accounts that really, we're going to have to brand ourselves continually, and we're going to have to tell our story. And we've got a nice start on that. Kristen and team have done a tremendous job in creating that brand and doing some of those things. But we're really going to have to think, I think, just strategically about what that looks like. So we just tried to get a jump on it and list and think about a few different things that we could do right away. And we'll show you some of that here. But a few things I just kind of wanted to highlight and show you, and then turn it over to you guys for a conversation about ideas you'd want to suggest to us. First is we're going to show you a little video we worked on and talked about a potential series of videos that we could release. Almost, I don't believe it kind of feels commercially, but you kind of think about, really that's what we're doing, right? Trying to put some video out there to have people understand who we are and what we're about. A social media campaign to continue to promote enrollment, featuring highlights from videos. We have some featured photos we're going to show you here. I'm going to ask Kristen to come back to these items and show them to you. Then we also talked about tangible things like a welcome book. It might sound a little, simple, but at the same time, something tangible to give families as they come to visit our district. I would almost jump down to the fifth bullet here too that talks about school tours, being a lot more intentional about expectations and ways we model school tours and the things we talk about with our principals around how you give a tour, the important things to reiterate about the district, the messages we want to make sure come across in the opportunity about giving a tour. But that welcome book, we think there's probably a lot of avenues there that that we're doing some special things about selling the area and selling the public schools in Iowa City, as far as why that would be the right choice for them. Website transition, you guys have already approved a line item to this effect on a board agenda to update functionality. That first impression of the district, we know before they probably talk to anybody in the district, the thing they're going to see is going to be the webpage or our social media accounts. And so that's got to be a home run, right? We have to continue to hit it there and look for ways we can improve that. Easy to find information, that it's attractive, attention grabbing, positive, all of those things. The homepage kind of focus on like why they should choose us, right? Like why are we the best choice for their family? And so we're already working on that. Again, its estimated completion date would be, this upcoming school year, fall of '23. We talked a little bit about school tours, even some more swag to give prospective families outside of the welcome book that we talked about, the format of the tours I touched on, and just like anything, and connected to our conversation we started on here. I think I remember Director Finch saying it was really that, the foundation is those relationships, right? If we don't build that foundation of relationships, everything else seems superficial. And when things go wrong, just like you guys talked about with the norm conversation, we have anything to fall back on. So the first and most important thing we do is to establish that relationship. And then, again, continue to work to enhance our social media presence. Telling our story, a couple of cool things that Kristen's talked about, and I think you'll already be familiar with. One of them is the Senior Spotlight we started last year. I know she has plans to really amp that up to do even more. What did you say, 25 seniors?
My goal.
25 is the goal this year, to try to highlight 25 seniors and their story and where they're going to go. We've talked about alumni in the same way, about how do we try to capture alumni with great stories that have went on to do great things from the Iowa City Community School District and highlight them. Teacher appreciation campaign, testimonials from our staff, and then just kind of to meet our folks and let them and talk and tell about their story too. So the rest of the stuff's a little bit informal there, so I don't want you to see that yet. But and then showcasing the great happenings in our schools is really kind of what rounds out the list. So, Kristen, things that I glossed over too quickly, or kind of timeline stuff you'd want to touch on?
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to, at what point you want to cue up the video, but what will really kick us off.
I really don't want to show it to them.
Yes, you do. Sure you do. And so the video we did just recently pull together, but it really helps to, I think it feels like a companion piece to the other district videos that we've done, those welcome videos. I think we do one every, 2 to 3 years. We try to get a new one out, and we had a new one this last summer. So it has that same feel, but the difference of it is you're hearing from Superintendent Degner in this video, and it just has a different approach to it a little bit. But that will really kick things off. And then what we're really going to dive into first is really just enrollment campaigns. So our first focus will be the online learning program, because we'd really like to tighten up that enrollment and have a kind of a deadline of, I think Amy wanted March 31st. So we'll roll out that marketing campaign first to our own families, to current online learning program families, and then also do a social media push across the entire state of Iowa, since it is open to any student in Iowa. That'll be our primary focus. Then when we roll into April, we'll switch over just to the general enrollment. Enroll today, it's open. We'll start with our families, our current families, get that process started, but then do a push again on social media. We've also pushed out the opportunity to maybe do either Google ads or YouTube ads. I've looked into some pricing on that, just depending on how much of a budget we would want to put behind it, if any. So just a lot of options on the table. Like Matt referenced, I've got probably 25 different enrollment graphics that have this kind of cohesive feel that we just want to blanket the market with. And that's the plan, and we can do as little or as much as we want to do with that. Obviously what we put on our social media, that's free. We can put money into it to boost it and get some more kind of ad space on social media, and then like I said, we could take it further with Google ads and YouTube ads, which are kind of the most common online forms of advertising at this point. So those are kind of the highlights, the recommendations for discussion.
Let's see that video.
I know, Matt's hesitant, but
can't wait.
I've seen it like one.
Maybe you do something with the lights.
do you want to do? Should we flicker and then?
You'd be able to see it better.
Matt told us today he's gonna go get snacks during the video. So he doesn't have
Popcorn?
I know.
It's going to go viral.
I mean, a candy bar when you guys watch it. Yeah.
No.
Do we think the volume is good here? So
It's just like, doesn't want us to. Doesn't want to watch himself over and over and over.
Every single day, we have the opportunity to make an impact and change the lives of thousands of students. There is nothing more powerful than that. Education is one true transformative system that we have. We get to not only build and shape the future of our students' lives, but we get to commit to all of them. And what our staff shares is this great commitment to build on the lives and futures of our students and a deep commitment just to be the best at what we do. And that's what makes me proud to serve every student, every day in the Iowa City Community School District. We lead the state with national merit semifinalists. We have championship athletic teams. We have award-winning student journalists. We consistently exceed state and national averages in graduation rates. We could not be more proud of students in our district. We are child-centered and future-focused. A part of our job in education is help our students determine their path post-K-12 education. Part of that challenge is helping students find their passion. And when we talk about students deserving to be part of something great, that is the experience we're hoping that they channel into, that they find a passion, they find an interest, they find an avenue that they want to explore, that they get curious about. Whatever that may be, our job is to give them that boost to be successful in the next stage of their life. Being in public schools is a unique opportunity because of the depth and breadth of the curriculum we get to provide. We have an elite staff that share not only in a tireless commitment to be great, but also in that deep desire to see all of their students be successful. It gains skills around technology, around diversity, equity, inclusion, around mental health, and knowing how to meet the students' most important needs before they worry about instructing content in the classroom. I'm proud to serve in Iowa City Community School District. What centers us all is our commitment to being all in for all kids. That is our promise to you. Every day, every student, whatever it takes.
So we bank at US Bank, so you can deposit the road.
Well, it's not
Each
final.
month,
It's
right?
not final
Each month
form,
they
right?
come
I mean, we can edit it.
No, I really do like, I mean, that was a nice video.
That's nice.
That's a great
Well,
video.
So part of it is, you know, and I think it was you that mentioned this today, is, you know, a constant question we have to ask ourselves is like, who's the audience, right? And, you know, not to get in the weeds on a specific issue right away, but this will be challenging at different times about what gets communicated in the story we put out, right? And I was pretty transparent with the team today and said, you know, I'm almost nervous to say it to you guys about that it's going to come out the wrong way, but some of our values as a district is not going to be always what's the most appealing thing to a parent choosing to move here. And so where do we thread that needle to know that people understand our values? Because I feel like this tells our values pretty clear, right? This tells the story of Iowa City, at least it does to me, and that's probably why I said those things, right? But what is going to be appealing when we are in this idea about trying to get students from other places, and how do we share those messages? So I say all that to say we're just going to have to think critically about our audience with every piece that we put out. I think right now this really speaks to our families and why they should stay and why they should feel confident in the experience they're getting there. If we were going to send a message probably, you know, from a broader recruitment effort, we might share some different things. It's maybe more in that category where I'm listing off national merit semifinalists and athletic championship teams, you know, some of those things that are great achievements, but we know, you know, are nice benefits of the core hard work that we do every day, right? And so I think Kristen and I both get excited about some of this work, you know, and the opportunity to do that because we have so many great things going on. It's almost like we get to take control back somewhat of some of the story that gets told for us different times. And if we get to do this, we really start to get to hold the megaphone a little bit and probably drown out some of the other negativity and criticism that comes to us sometimes because there's so many awesome things to share. But so there's that video, then there's the shorter one that, I don't know if you want to see that quick, we kind of condensed it to 30 seconds.
We'll leave the lights on for this.
Yeah, we can just leave the lights on here.
This is only 30 seconds.
That should be the same.
Education is one true transformative.
It's more of a call to action for
Yeah.
enrollment. Yeah.
System that we have. We get to not only build and shape the future of our students' lives, but we get to commit to all of them. Being in public schools is a unique opportunity because of the depth and breadth of the curriculum we get to provide. We have an elite staff that share not only in a tireless commitment to be great, but also in that deep desire to see all of their students be successful. That is our promise to you. Every day, every student, whatever it takes.
So it's taking the video and just making it
And then
little
it
bit
puts
quicker.
that,
Yeah.
if you saw it right at the end, that enrolled a day and pushing you to that website, so.
And then here's the photos that Kristen was talking about that we would roll through, and so I'll just kind of slowly kind of click through those so you can see. So there's like the enroll today theme. Maybe I'll click on one.
Yeah.
Seems like
If you
it's
just double
delayed.
click, it should open it maybe.
Oh,
Just hit the
yeah,
arrow.
the
on the
arrow,
side.
you can go through all of them.
It's like Dwayne's 1,000 pictures he's
Yeah.
got, so that
Keep going, Dwayne.
yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
That one's a carousel post that'll float through
Yeah.
social media. So I took some sayings from what Matt said in the video, one being all in for all kids, another one being every student deserves to be part of something great, and then the third one being every day, every student, whatever it takes. And then just brought some of our kiddos to the front. I mean, that's what's gonna draw attention, I think.
Yeah.
And just, they all have a cohesive feel, so when you see it, you know, it all feels like it's part of one larger campaign. And then this is the one specific to the online learning program.
Okay.
So, you see this, do you have any comments now?
Oh, yeah. It's open.
For one thing, we're really impressed with the diversity of students. I'm sure that's a deliberate choice. I think it's a good, I think it's a good show.
Thank you.
I think the overall quality is good, the message is good. For potential parents like me, I don't know if it creates a stomach. So as a tool now, to me, this would be great, and I'd support it. I'm not quite so sure if we thought about seeing what Hispanic focus group would see, look at this.
Okay.
What an African American focus group would see if they look at it, or an Asian focus group would see. You're talking about showing it, to specific marketing or targeting groups. I didn't quite hear you say anything for the white parents. Maybe I missed that. And there are groups in town here, or county here, that might be helpful in trying to figure out if this has an appeal to all of the students that we want to appeal to. The other thing I'm thinking of is that we had a very nice long letter with 4 or 5 days ago, I think, it was sent to me, and I assumed all of the board from a parent, which basically outlined a marketing strategy.
Charlie, could you speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry, Mark. It's basically outlined a set of working concepts. I'm wondering if we could look into, we want to do this now, in the near future, maybe, look into having some kind of a parental group or a community group that might assist us and help us with our marketing program. I think we've had other email messages too along the same lines, a little bit less extensive than this one. So I know there's 2 things, big things that I've outlined for you to do. I'm not sure you're going to want to do either one of them. I think we should at least talk about it.
I think we've probably already kind of wrapped our heads around doing both of those, Charlie. I think that we know we're probably going to need some kind of a marketing plan, and then, the other new aspect of this, while we've done marketing and branding before, is going to be when we commit additional resources to it, measuring the success of those resources, right? Like, okay, so the return on investment for doing those things. And I think what you're speaking to a little bit is almost like feedback from the groups that we think we're reaching with the message. Is it really reaching them, and how do you measure that, right? That's a whole other piece. And so, but I think, as far as some kind of a group and getting feedback from that group, I mean, if nothing else from an idea generation standpoint, I think we need to do that, right? I think that's probably the responsible thing to do as we kind of enter into this new space. So I don't think there's any opposition on our, team from doing that. And And I would say, and I think I'm familiar with the email you're talking about, I mean, and I'd actually talked to that staff member that morning before they'd sent the email from a different meeting and shared basically the same thoughts, right? I mean, that, yeah, we are gonna need to have those things and be able to look at how we would measure the success or failure of those efforts, and knowing that we aren't gonna get it right all the time with those, but at the same time trying to make sure we're the best steward of the resources we can.
Even Walmart and stuff seems to.
Yeah.
You know, one thing, when you talk about who the audience is, you know, I think with online programming, that's our statewide audience, and then I would say our natural audience would probably be people, whoever the people are who feel targeted currently with this current environment. I think that's what we're saying is, you know, this is a place where you don't have to move here, but you can be in your community and still feel like you belong in a school. And honestly, one place to go, Iowa Safe Schools, I think would be a great place that is broadly distributed among the LGBTQ folks all over the state. They know about the governor's conference. You know, that's where you will get kids from Denison, where I'm from, you know, kids who identify LGBTQ, who like go to that conference and feel like, for the first time in my life, I feel like I can be myself. I think that's someone we can target. The only other people we're targeting is anyone who's going to move here. So I think we should reach out to the university, we should reach out to the cities and say, what are you guys doing to get people to move to our area? Because, and again, we highlight what it is we've got. And one of the things we currently have in the area we live is we live in a bubble. And if you're going to be in this state, for a lot of people, this would be the bubble to live in. Now, the barriers to living here is the cost and jobs. Well, that's why I think if we partner with some of our communities, you know, everybody wants that, right? The university needs folks to move here, to work here. Yeah, the cities want people here. So I think that, you know, if we think about that, like, we're working in partnership with these other municipalities and our company, town, and the university to be like, hey, this is an attractive place. Because if you're coming from out of Iowa, probably what you hear is what's going on politically. And so we need to be able to like, yeah, and if you don't, like if you vibe with that, you can move to those places. But if you don't vibe with that, you know, this is still a great place to live and raise a family. You know, this area. So those are our targets, but I think Iowa Safe Schools already has an audience, a real built-in audience, and those are, you know, and then that's where we, again, with the online program, you know, it's not like we need or could support 1,000 kids probably, but if we just got to 500, I mean, you know, now that's a lot more viable, and it makes it easier for us to offer that, because really the only thing we can do, the other thing, and maybe we all got this email, but Raygun. I mean, this is a company that has a way of getting their word out, and you know, their stuff ends up going viral nationally. Just, you know, the print, the attitude, you know, they just have some things going for them, and I think, you know, it might be an opportunity for us to get an city school district Raygun.
We do.
We do.
Oh, we have one.
We have a couple,
Well,
but yeah.
We do. I should have worn.
Can get another one.
Missed opportunity.
Just
It's
for our
funny because
district?
he sent the same email to me and I said, we already have a store with you. He goes, oh, I can't believe I missed it.
I don't even
Yeah.
have one. What the
Yeah.
heck?
We got an I Heart Iowa City Schools, and then Iowa City Schools All In for all kids.
kids.
Oh, I
Yeah.
should
Hashtag
It was
I
a
should sit
fundraiser
together.
for the foundation, wasn't it?
They purchased
Or-
them for all
2
new
years ago?
teachers 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we distributed them
Well,
at the
they-
new
But
teacher
But
orientation.
I bought, they also had them on sale in their store, because I bought
Yes,
those,
and
and
it's-
I think
I
a
think it's
portion
like
went to
$1
the
of
foundation.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
with the Iowa Safe Schools, are you talking about having a table at the conference that's
Oh,
coming up in April? or
A
something
table,
like
we
that?
get, you know, website advertising, like how do we
Okay.
connect with that group of folks? So, yeah, if it's tabling, if it's social media marketing, if it's getting a spot on a website. And then, you guys probably know this better than me, but I know when I was using Facebook ads, the analytics I thought were really helpful, because I can compare my website to other and I'm sure private schools are going to come in and they're going to have marketing budgets, and we could probably compare, and then we could see how our ads are stacking up against their ads with views. I just found those analytics, and I don't know, but I imagine Google has similar analytic software that just shows you, hey, here's how your ad is working.
The
who you're targeting.
engagements.
Yeah, so I don't know. And that I found at the time that to be very cost effective.
Well, and really Google and YouTube pricing, they have a pricing or setup where you really only pay when your ad is engaged. If it's viewed, if people click on something, there's a call to action, that's when they have a couple different options, but that was the one that seemed like, well, that makes sense,
Yeah.
you know? If they're not just skipping through after the 3-second ad and so I think there's some strategy to that too. And then the piece you're talking about, some of the partnerships in the community, and that was one thing that we did detail out, you know, partnerships with the Realtors Association, which we're in contact with them, partnerships with the county, just getting, you know, I've heard of other school districts getting the deed list, and you push that welcome book or any marketing materials to those new families coming in. Also working with the university, we work closely with them, they'll have recruits that are coming in, and we'll, you know, have them meet with one of the superintendents or deputy superintendents and tour the schools. So I think it's just upping our game with all of those pieces to make sure that we're right there when, you know, families are coming in, knowing they have a choice, but, you know.
You know, one thing we don't see in the video that we probably need to see is our facilities. Because we've got it, we had a bond to pay for it, and so just.
And they're beautiful.
And it's a super selling point. So, you know, and I know we can do multiple of these, and I'm sure we already have.
I think that's the plan, right? Just to continue to do more and have more of those video segments out and
wait till West
less
Side
of Matt, more of
Facebook.
other things. So,
Right.
yeah.
No, I think you mentioned this, Matt, but to me, there's 4 discrete marketing campaigns. There's keeping our students who are here, and reminding them why we give them a great education. There's the online school, which is statewide, because you can go from anywhere. There's the people who are moving to Iowa City, which you mentioned too, and why they should enroll here instead of somewhere else. But then I think there's a 4th group that's the areas around us that are a drivable distance. So maybe they don't want to live in Iowa City. It's expensive to live here, right? So maybe they live out in the county somewhere, but they have the privilege and the means to transport their kids to school, and letting them know, you know, the benefits of a big district that has 21 elementary buildings and 3 comprehensive, and, you know, and all of the bells and whistles and facilities.
Yeah, to look at our programming in comparison to what
Yeah,
they're
all of
getting
the
at their
electives that you
current-
have,
yeah.
and the choice, and our CTE, and the student build house. I mean, there's like so many really cool things that I think, but each of those campaigns
It's
look
different.
radically different. And I think you know, Matt, you said I'm almost hesitant to say this, but I think that we need to acknowledge and accept that those campaigns are going to be marketed towards different subgroups of people, and that they are going to look very different. That's the targeted nature of the marketing.
Well, and they're the university, maybe it's just the hospital. I mean, they are the largest employer in most of our surrounding counties.
Yeah.
So there's people driving here already.
There's people, from Cedar Rapids. I mean, they make that 380 corridor drive, and so I think that's a community to market to, right? You're already coming down, but then what those families are going to want to know, right, is, okay, well, I start my shift at the hospital at 6:30, so if I'm going to drive my kid down, where are they going to go at 6:15? And if we don't have an answer to that, then we're not making it feasible. So what do our BASP programs look? I mean, that's kind of the calculus, or how can you make it.
Well, and that's, I think, the
work.
data we're going to find out, right?
Yeah.
The farther we get into this is, okay, then what are just like anything we look at, what are the barriers that are preventing people? What are the sellables, that, are appealing to people? And then what are the things that are keeping them from maybe, taking that chance or doing that? And then what are those things that we need to try to address? And those become competing priorities probably for us, right? Because it might not be something we thought about investing additional resources in prior.
So I'm thinking about data. An important part of the data that I'm thinking about to me is where our enrollment growth has actually occurred in the last 5 to 10 years. And that has been primarily for African American and Hispanic students. We have, and the population growth in this county has occurred a lot in North Liberty, Coralville, and Tiffin more recently. Those are communities that people are going to move into.
Sorry, Charlie, what was the last part? I can hardly hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. I say the population growth in the county, most recently has been in North Liberty, Norville, and Tiffin. So one of the things I'm thinking we need to do is compete with CCA. And well, primarily CCA, I guess. And Solon. And make it possible for people to see that they can move to North Liberty, and if they move into North Liberty in this district, then they'll have a better school system to go to, have their kids go to, than if they move into North Liberty in the area served by CCA. CCA people will probably get offended by that, but it's, you know,
Every person for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, they can blame the legislature.
This isn't our ballgame.
Right, yeah.
We will offend people as soon as we put these things out, right? I mean, that's gonna be the thing.
But to me,
And I mean, I think that's just a reality. We offended people when we did the online program the last time, right? I mean, there was districts that weren't happy with us that we were putting that out and sharing that, so.
To me, in thinking about market, market targets, I'm thinking, to me, it's important to understand the census data and know which communities and which systems are getting more people moving, and include that information in our market determinations.
So, can I say something? I don't know if I'm interrupting. It's hard for me to tell if someone else is talking. No?
Go ahead.
You're good.
So there's about, when we're setting up something like this, there's about 10 different strands of information and communication streams that we need to organize. I think it's based on everyone's comments. It sounds like there's that everyone agrees that we need to make a concerted effort on this. To do that, we need to be really organized and structured about it. So I would propose that we create a district promotion committee charter similar to our other charters. Is there an echo, or is that only in my ears?
Only to you.
Must be the COVID.
Sorry, I'm not feeling very great, guys. Anyway, I think we need to have, I think what we need is probably have a committee similar to the charter committees we already have, because this is going to be what we are dealing with moving forward. So I sent Jane, as the P&G president, sort of a starting point for what that district promotion committee charter would look like, in terms of its purpose, accountability, and responsibilities. I would propose that this become something we look at soon, so that we can have, like I said, a concerted effort moving forward.
I gotta say, I'm not sure I agree with that. I don't know anything about marketing. That's not my jam. And with all due respect to the other 6 board members, I'm not sure we have a marketing expert on the team. We've got Kristen, we've got people in the admin team. I'm worried that if we try to charter it up and committee it up and create all of this structure, we're just gonna get in the way of the people who need to do their jobs.
So my concern is, I'm already setting up meetings with downtown district, Better Together. There's a couple more, because we need their collaboration. And if we don't need a committee for me to do that work, because those are people that I have good relationships with, or I serve on their boards. If we don't need a committee for me to be doing that, that's fine. I was trying to do it because I thought it would seem a bit more structured. I do have quite a bit of experience with this kind of stuff.
What is your guys' comfort level on, as I'm thinking about like what's getting influx to us, and so like what's your guys' comfort level as you as individuals when you bring us ideas, that we figure out some kind of a mechanism then to update you guys? Like, you know, we do the recurring equity updates, and I'm not sure we need a marketing update that often, but some kind of, what was the term Maki used? Promotion. Like maybe it's some kind of promotion update or some kind of a regular report out that if you know, that everybody feels like they're on the same page. Like if somebody's tried to make a connection to say, hey, this is an idea I had that I gave Matt and Kristen and that we've played out, then there's some kind of a feedback loop back to the rest of the board to know that if there's something you're working on in your individual capacities that still affects the school, we have a way to do that. Because that's the only part I guess I'm concerned about, is that if JP has an idea, you know, with a connection through his work around mental health and starts something down the road, then the rest of you find out a week later that you're like, well, why didn't we know about that? So just maybe like, or Maka with the 2 affiliations, she said, then what's the report out around that? If we have something like that, then I think we probably all have some connections and skills that are unique that, you know, maybe we can be fine doing it that way then.
Is it too cumbersome for you to do it in our board update doc?
No, I could definitely do that too.
To have just
yeah.
a.
And then it wouldn't have to be at a meeting. I mean,
Or, yeah, but also there's been times where people had ideas in work and it's brought up because it gets passed on to a district employee. And just like the work I would assume that Maka would be doing with the Better Together group in promotion wise, it would tie into some of the work that Kristen is doing, and somehow or another they will end up collaborating together, and that gets reported out from that natural sort of matriculation of work that's being done by district staff with the assistance of board members. I mean, because that happens quite often.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm just thinking, I remember seeing something in your board update, Jane, that you're working on, and I read it, and I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome, but I also don't have any more questions, so I don't need to follow up with Matt. But if I did, I know I could say, hey, on our check-in, that's how I would assume this would work, and so there would be a promotion thing in there, and then if I saw something like, oh, I wonder what that means, then I would just talk to Matt at a check-in and say, I don't understand what this is.
That's totally fine with me.
What was that, Maka? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I said that's fine with me.
Oh, okay. No, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah, I think the only thing I don't want to happen is, you know, once, like, you all have identified a campaign, that there's not a whole nother separate thing with different looks, and, you know, that somebody, you know, that it
stays on brand a little bit, right? Yeah.
Like the bond campaign, for example, like that level of organization or involvement. Maka?
Is there a question? Sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah, like that's my question to you. Like, were you referring to something more like the bond campaign, something that?
No.
Okay.
No, sorry.
Okay.
No, I'm thinking of collaborating with Matt Degner and Kristen, because Kristen's going to be the guide here, so that I would never want to not have her involved in something that has to do with the marketing scheme, because that's what she's good at. It's more about if I'm going to be going to some of these, because people contact me about it, and I contact Matt Degner, and I don't want to go by myself. That's not my goal at all. It's just more of a collaboration, and I mean I'm fine with it if this is what you guys are fine with. I just wasn't sure how we were going to structure it, so I'm fine with Matt, or if you want more information from me, if and when I meet with people, as you guys know, I memo everything I do, and in my board capacity, so whatever's fine with me.
Well, I think I can just easy enough do like a Google Doc link into the board update, and you guys can kind of keep track of different things that come to Kristen and I's attention that you're all doing in that effort, and then that'll be a good, I think, probably collection place for us too, to even start to, because I had the same concern, JP, right? Is like, we don't want different brand and different messaging going on. Like when you think about those 4, I like how Lisa said that, those 4 discrete groups that you're thinking about, like we got to have an organized approach to all of those things, and that'll kind of be our, I guess, our, guiding light, I don't know, like lighthouse, whatever it is, like that'll be the place we keep all of those strategies, right? That'll be the keeper of the strategies, and then you'll kind of know how they connect together, and we'll make sure that they talk to each other and connect together so that we're not doing something that competes against. But I think that's a good start. And then the other thing I think we just need to be open about with all this is it's subject to change, because it's not something we've been as aggressive about before, and so we're going to learn more and we're going to do more as we go along.
I mean, the cool thing is we've got the content.
Yeah, right.
We've got the product. We don't have to.
Yeah.
It's great. We just need to tell the story.
And we have somebody passionate about telling that story.
Yeah.
Kristen.
Yeah.
That is still
I thought
Matt.
you meant my husband, since
No,
he's a teacher.
The unpaid actors get no glory.
Yeah.
So every new student to the district, you get
Yes,
the cut, right?
perfect.
Yeah.
But no, I like the start of this framework, and I personally look forward to more information as you guys get it put together and branded, framed, and pushed out.
And I'd
Awesome.
say it's probably worth some budget.
Yep, I've already given her some, so
So,
we'll keep
there we
working on
go.
that, and then when it gets to a point that I think it's uncomfortable, we'll have to kind of tell you guys,
Talk to
hey,
the
like,
board.
it's, you know, it's developed to be a chunk now, or we
And
need
like
to
you said,
think.
to monitor the effectiveness. I mean, we gotta
Yeah.
know, that's why I like the analytics.
Yeah.
If we can see what impact we're having, it's helpful.
This is exciting.
Thinking about the video again, Crystal, thought there was really good diversity of the students, so that I'm not quite so sure about the teachers. And they show up, pretty quickly. I didn't see very many black or Hispanic teachers. And I missed something.
Yeah, and we can go back and look at that. I'll tell you, to save money to get this pulled off quickly, we used footage, B-roll footage that was already taken with the other videos that he's been on site and taken. I can have him look back, and Matt, not this Matt, but the other Matt
I
who helped
did
us with
catch
this video.
two.
You did?
Yeah, I
did.
thought there was
There
two
was
as
there was
well.
at least two, but the part of the diversity that oftentimes I don't think most people think about or look at is the number of male teachers. And I like the focus that we had a good mix of male and female, what looked to be teachers in the classroom, because I think that's important. That speaks to, I mean, if we eventually want to do a marketing campaign for future teachers, you want it to feel inviting to men to apply, and it's not just a bunch of women faces flashing like, God, they have no men on staff.
That's one of the disproportionalities.
Yeah, and I think that's important. So I did, like, I was counting.
I wonder, along the lines of data, if we could, we should, I think, collect data on where our open enrollments are coming from now. Like, what are
We already
our top 3
Yeah.
districts that are open enrolling into us? Because that is going to tell us probably where we can also focus efforts. I also wonder if we could send a Qualtrics survey, maybe, to open enrollment families and ask them, give them 10 choices, what are the top 3 reasons that you open enrolled into Iowa
We
City?
still do that,
And
right?
that's what we,
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I
We've
think
done
in
that for a
addition to
number-
that, you could look at the
Yeah.
data for who we're losing
Yeah, that's
students
fine.
to.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
maybe
and I was,
Student
and, and we could survey them too, although I bet if they're leaving, they're not gonna be inclined to.
But
One of the
even
best
more-
things you already did was build a new high school. That's what started closing the
Yeah.
net, right? That was the number one indicator on those surveys. I remember when I started, and we built the new high school, and that's what's really closed the gap sizably for us. So we do have some of that data drawn, and it'd probably be just good to refine those efforts and say, okay, is it enough? Do we need to go back to it?
Because if that's
So,
it, if the
yeah.
number one reason is that brand new high school in North Liberty, then I think we know we have to market to CCA families. Like
Well,
that's,
it's lower in class, I mean, West was at 2,000 plus kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
so
Again,
it's
with
just
smaller
crowd,
schools,
yeah,
yeah.
smaller school, more opportunities.
Some more products, you know.
But the CCA, I mean, they are right there, you don't have to drive, I mean, they're just right across the street, so.
Mhm.
It's North Liberty.
because I love the budget, but I wanna put the money where we're gonna get our number one
Yeah.
bang out.
Do you think, and including the online program as well?
Well,
Yeah.
to me, that's
Everything.
a different strategy
Oh,
altogether, because
okay.
we can get somebody in Denison or Sioux
No.
City with the online
Not
program,
yet.
so that's a, you know, and if you wanna go online, it's not because of a fancy new high school, right?
Right.
Because you're gonna be in your bed, so that is really a totally, but yes, putting budget towards that marketing, I think we should market that, but
This is
it's different.
a little tangential, but since you mentioned it, because we got an email asking a question about our homeschool assistance program.
Yeah.
You know, if we're sending out Qualtrics, why not gather some data on that too? Why do you choose homeschool?
Yeah.
Because I know way back in the day, we were losing kids to Mid-Prairie. And then we really buffed that up, and now
Yeah.
if we're getting the data, 2 birds, 1 stone.
Were there any other feedback on the marketing? If not, I think Matt had a couple other things he wanted to announce out.
Yeah, just a couple things, and since they're not agenda items, we can't really, have any substantive conversation on this tonight, but if you have questions, please call. So, instead of an ed committee on 321 timeliness, we need to do a closed session around litigation, and so we probably won't do a ed committee on that. That's that Tuesday we come back, and so we'll try to shoot for that at 5 o'clock. And again, I'll confirm this with board leadership and you guys in the coming days. And then I wanted to also make you aware that we'll be putting out a statement of support for LGBTQ community. If the board wants to go further than what we say, fine, but Chris and I have worked on it and really trying to stay away from criticizing any of the current policy in Des Moines because they've been very vindictive and punitive to districts and called them down to Des Moines. And we also, aren't trying to necessarily create an issue on our home district, but we are getting a lot of question and concern from our LGBT folks about how we're supporting them and why we're not being vocal at this point. And so I don't really feel comfortable waiting any longer or seeming reactive to the legislation passing. So you will see a statement of support. Like I said, it doesn't mention current policy. It just really says we're proud of what we do and support our people. And then I know there's a couple emails probably in your inboxes that you're thinking about what is our response or what's a reply. We've been working on information with the team the last couple of days to try to get some data back to you guys, even if we won't be able to share that same data back to the individuals. But we are working on responses. So if you haven't seen a response from me yet, that's why.
And then the only other thing on our agenda was looking ahead at setting another retreat date that would put us in the summer, June or July. And I was joking saying bring your dates because I know we all have family commitments sometimes that spring up, and I don't know if it's too soon to start thinking about those dates or if you all feel comfortable if we sent out a doodle poll, say in April, to look at dates for June. Would you know more about what your summer plans would be by then?
That's good.
Okay, that will be the plan. And with that, I don't have anything else. If everybody's okay, we can, wait, do I have to have a motion to adjourn? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Have a good night.